Hi everyone, welcome to Red Umbrella. I hope you're all doing well. Today we'll be looking at every banned and censored South Park episode explained to fall asleep to. We're covering the episodes that got pulled from streaming, the ones that aired once and never came back, and the real reasons networks won't show them anymore. But before we begin, I'd just like to kindly ask you all to subscribe. It's completely free and it really helps us improve the videos for this wonderful community we've managed to build. Anyway, that's enough. Let's begin. Super Best Friends. The first South Park episode that got totally pulled was Super Best Friends. This episode came out in 2001 in season 5. It showed religious figures as superheroes fighting together. Jesus was there, Buddha was there, Muhammad was there. Back then nobody cared. The episode aired normally, it went into reruns, people could watch it whenever they wanted. Then 5 years later everything changed. Comedy Central stopped airing the episode. Streaming services took it down. You can't watch it legally unless you have the DVD. The reason was simple. The episode showed Muhammad, and after 2006 that became too risky. The episode was about David Blaine starting a cult. Blaine was a famous magician back then. He did street magic on TV and did big public stunts. He got buried alive in a coffin for a week. He stood in a block of ice for days. He held his breath underwater for record-breaking times. Millions of people watched his specials. He became this mysterious guy who seemed to have real powers. South Park took that image and went crazy with it. In their version, Blaine comes to South Park and starts doing magic tricks for people. Simple stuff at first. Card tricks, levitation, making things disappear. But then he starts telling people he's not just a magician. He says he's like a god. He says his powers come from something higher. He tells people to follow him and he'll make their lives matter. The town totally falls for it. Randy and Sharon Marsh join Blaine's cult. They start wearing robes. They chant. They give him money. More and more people join every day. Blaine sets up a compound outside of town. He tells his followers they need to prove their devotion. He makes them do embarrassing stuff to prove they believe. The joke is, people will believe anything if you present it right. Blaine is clearly just a street magician, but he's good at manipulating people. He knows how to make people feel special. He tells them they're part of something bigger. That's all it takes. Soon, half the town will do whatever Blaine says. Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny watch this happen. They know it's fake. They try to tell their parents, but the adults won't listen. They're too deep in the cult mindset. The boys realize they need help from someone with real power. So they go to Jesus. Jesus in South Park lives in town and has his own public access TV show. He's a regular character who shows up sometimes. The boys explain what's happening. Jesus agrees to help. But when he confronts Blaine, he realizes the magician is stronger than he thought. Blaine has gotten into something real. Maybe it's just mass psychology. Maybe it's actual dark magic. Either way, Jesus can't handle it by himself. So Jesus makes a call. He reaches out to his friends. He calls the Super Best Friends. This is when the episode really gets going. The Super Best Friends show up one by one. Buddha shows up and he can manipulate fire. He's calm and peaceful, but also powerful. Krishna appears with multiple arms ready to fight. Joseph Smith comes in with his special abilities. Moses shows up as this giant glowing shape that shoots energy beams. And Muhammad shows up wearing a superhero costume with ice powers. He can freeze things and create ice walls. He's just another member of the team. The show treats all of them the same. They're all religious figures. They're all working together. They're all here to stop Blaine's cult. The Super Best Friends confront Blaine at his compound. His followers make a barrier to protect him, but the Super Best Friends use their powers to break through. Buddha creates a ring of fire. Muhammad uses his ice to stop it and make a path. Moses zaps the entrance open. Krishna fights off the guards. Jesus leads them to Blaine. There's a big fight. Blaine uses his tricks and illusions, but the Super Best Friends have real power. They beat him. They show everyone he's a fake. The cult falls apart. The townspeople wake up and go home embarrassed. The Super Best Friends save the day. The episode came out on July 4th, 2001. Comedy Central advertised it as a 4th of July special. They showed it during prime time. There were no warnings, no disclaimers, no censorship. Muhammad showed up on screen multiple times in the episode. He talked. He fought with Jesus and Buddha. He was a hero. Nobody complained. There were no protests. No religious groups wanted the episode banned. It was just another South Park episode. The show always made fun of religion. This was normal. Viewers laughed at how absurd it was to have religious figures as superheroes. It was obviously satire. Nobody thought it was attacking Islam or any religion. The episode went into reruns like any other. You could see it on Comedy Central randomly during the year. The creators didn't think they were doing anything controversial. Matt Stone and Trey Parker had shown Muhammad before. He showed up briefly in the show's opening credits in earlier seasons. He was just standing there with other religious figures. Nobody cared. Showing Muhammad was treated the same as showing Jesus or Buddha. It It was all part of how South Park does comedy. Everything is fair game. All religions get made fun of equally. That was the point. If you protect one group, you're saying they matter more than others. South Park wouldn't do that. They treated all religions with the same disrespectful humor. Then came 2005. A Danish newspaper published 12 cartoons showing Muhammad. The newspaper said it was defending free speech. They wanted to show no topic should be off limits. But the cartoons made people really angry. Protests broke out across the Middle East and in Muslim communities around the world. Embassies got attacked, publishers who reprinted the cartoons got death threats, people died in riots. The controversy was all over international news for months. Western media argued about whether the cartoons were brave journalism or offensive. Some newspapers reprinted them to support free speech. Others refused and said the Danish paper was being reckless. Comedy Central watched all of this happen. The network realized they had a problem. Super Best Friends was in their library. That episode showed Muhammad fighting crime as a superhero. It showed him more than the Danish cartoons did. If someone decided to go after Comedy Central over it, the network would be in danger. They looked at the risks. They looked at what happened to other publishers. They made a decision based on fear. In 2006, they quietly stopped airing Super Best Friends. The episode stopped showing on TV. When South Park went to streaming years later, Super Best Friends wasn't included. No announcement, no explanation. It just disappeared. The episode is still on the Season 5 DVD box set. If you bought the DVD before everything went digital, you can still watch it. But most people stream now. They don't have DVDs. And on every streaming platform with South Park, Super Best Friends is missing. HBO Max doesn't have it. Paramount Plus doesn't have it. Hulu never had it when they carried the show. The episode got wiped from easy access. You'd have to buy the old DVD specifically to see it legally, or you'd have to find it online through unofficial ways. This made a weird situation. The episode wasn't banned because people complained when it came out. It got banned after the fact because of something that happened years later in another country about different cartoons. The creators never meant for Super Best Friends to be controversial. They included Muhammad as part of a group joke about religious figures teaming up. It was treated the same as showing Jesus and Buddha and Moses. But after the Danish cartoon crisis, anything showing Muhammad became too sensitive for American networks. Even old content nobody complained about for years suddenly became dangerous. Banning Super Best Friends set the tone for everything after. It taught Comedy Central no episode was safe. Content that aired fine 10 years ago could become a problem tomorrow. If the political climate changed or threats got worse, the network would pull content to protect itself. This wasn't about respecting religious beliefs. Comedy Central still aired episodes making fun of Christianity, Judaism, and other religions. They still showed Jesus as a regular character doing ridiculous things. The difference was fear. Christianity doesn't come with death threats for satire. Islam does sometimes. So the network made a business decision. They'd rather censor their own show than take the risk. Super Best Friends was the start of South Park's censorship problems. Once one episode got pulled for showing Muhammad, the network started looking for more. Anytime the character appeared became a red flag. More episodes would follow. More content would get censored or edited. The example was set. Comedy Central would give in to pressure and fear instead of standing behind their creators. And the creators couldn't do anything about it. They didn't own the broadcast rights. The network did. So Super Best Friends disappeared and stayed gone. It's still gone today. Moving on, we have Cartoon Wars Part 1. Section 2, Cartoon Wars Part 1. Cartoon Wars Part 1 came out in April 2006, right in the middle of the Muhammad cartoon controversy. This was South Park directly talking about what happened with the Danish cartoons. The episode wasn't trying to be subtle. It was the show's response to censorship and fear. The plot was about a fake Family Guy episode that was going to show Muhammad. The whole country panics. Networks argue about whether to air it. Cartman tries to get Family Guy canceled. Kyle tries to defend free speech. The episode became South Park's statement on what happens when networks give in to threats. But Comedy Central was too scared to let the full episode air without changes. They added warnings, they made cuts, and years later they went back and censored even more. The setup worked because South Park had been fighting with Family Guy for years. Matt Stone and Trey Parker thought Family Guy's comedy was lazy. They didn't like the random cutaway jokes that had nothing to do with the story. They thought it was cheap humor that didn't need real writing. So they'd made fun of Family Guy many times before. They'd shown the Family Guy writers as manatees randomly pushing idea balls together to make jokes. It was harsh satire. Using Family Guy for the Muhammad debate was perfect. It let South Park make 2 points at the same time. They could defend free speech and trash the rival show at the same time. The episode starts with TV news breaking the story. Family Guy is about to air an episode with Muhammad as a character. The announcement causes panic across America. The president calls an emergency meeting at the White House. He's worried about terrorist attacks. Network executives meet in boardrooms trying to decide if they should pull the episode. Religious leaders make statements. Some say it's important to defend free speech no matter what. Others say showing Muhammad is disrespectful and will cause violence. The country splits into groups. Everyone has an opinion. The boys watch all this on TV from South Park. Cartman sees a chance. He's hated Family Guy for a long time. He thinks the show is stupid. He's complained about it before, but nobody listened. Now he has a real reason to try to get it canceled. He can say it's not about taste, it's about safety. Family Guy showing Muhammad will get people killed. Networks that air it will be targeted. Cartman makes himself sound like the reasonable one. He's not trying to censor comedy. He's trying to protect people. He decides to go to Hollywood and convince the network executives to pull the episode. He packs a bag and gets on a bus to California. Kyle finds out what Cartman is doing. Kyle believes in free speech. He thinks networks shouldn't give in to threats. If you let one group decide what can and can't be shown, you lose all freedom to create anything. Today it's Muhammad, tomorrow it's something else. The line keeps moving until nothing is safe. Kyle thinks Cartman's plan is dangerous. Yeah, Cartman just wants to cancel a show he doesn't like. But he's using fear to do it. And if it works, it sets a terrible example. So Kyle gets on a bus and follows Cartman to Hollywood. He's going to stop Cartman from censoring Family Guy. The episode cuts between the boys' trip and what's happening everywhere else. We see the Family Guy writers working on the episode. They're nervous, but committed. We see network executives arguing in conference rooms. Some want to air it. Some want to pull it. We see news coverage getting more intense. Pundits argue on TV. Religious groups organize protests. The whole thing builds tension. Everyone is waiting to see what the network will do. Will they support the show, or will they give in to pressure? Cartman gets to Hollywood and meets with network executives. He gives them a presentation. He shows them news footage from the Danish cartoon riots. He talks about embassies getting attacked. He mentions death threats against publishers. He makes it sound like airing the Family Guy episode will cause the same violence. He argues that comedy isn't worth people dying. The executives listen. They're already scared. Cartman's speech makes them more scared. They start thinking about pulling the episode. Then Kyle bursts in. He argues the other side. He says giving in to threats means the terrorists win. If networks censor themselves because of fear, free speech is dead. The executives are stuck in the middle. They have to choose. The episode built to a cliffhanger ending. The Family Guy episode is about to air. Cartman and Kyle are still arguing with the executives. The network has to make a final decision. Will Muhammad show up on screen? The episode ends before we find out. South Park made it a two-parter. Viewers had to come back next week to see what happened. But this wasn't just a story cliffhanger. This was a real question. Would Comedy Central let South Park show Muhammad? Everyone knew the network was scared. The threats were real. The Danish cartoon controversy was still going on. Comedy Central had already stopped airing Super Best Friends. Would they let South Park push the limits again? When Cartoon Wars Part 1 first aired, Comedy Central tried to walk a line. They let most of the episode go through unchanged. The characters could talk about Muhammad. They could argue about whether showing him was right or wrong. The network added warnings before the episode. They told viewers the content dealt with sensitive religious topics. But they didn't cut the discussions. The only censorship was weird and all over the place. Comedy Central bleeped the word Muhammad in a few places. Not every time. Just sometimes. It made no sense. You could see Family Guy characters on screen. You could hear people talking about the Prophet. But randomly the name would get bleeped. It felt like the network was making decisions while panicking. They were scared, but didn't know exactly what to censor. So they censored randomly, hoping it would be enough. The reaction from viewers was split. Some loved that South Park was dealing with the controversy directly. The show was using its platform to defend free speech and make fun of censorship. They liked the bravery. Other viewers thought South Park was being irresponsible. They worried the episode would cause violence. They thought the creators were putting people in danger for a joke. Death threats started coming in right away. Matt Stone and Trey Parker got messages warning them not to show Muhammad in Part 2. Comedy Central got similar threats. The network was terrified. They had to decide what to do with the second part of the story. Would they let South Park finish what they started, or would they censor the ending to protect themselves? Behind the scenes, things were tense. The creators wanted to make their point. They wanted to show Muhammad on screen in Part 2 to prove giving in to fear was wrong. But Comedy Central had lawyers and executives worried about real consequences. They looked at what happened to the Danish newspaper. They saw the riots and attacks. They didn't want that happening to them. The network and the creators argued. The creators pushed for their vision. The network pushed back. Nobody knew how it would end until Part 2 actually aired. The cliffhanger was real in the story and in real life. Looking back now, Cartoon Wars Part 1 is in a weird state. You can still watch it on streaming, but not the original version. Comedy Central went back years after it aired and censored more. They bleeped more lines. They edited certain visuals. The version you watch today isn't the version that aired in 2006. This became a pattern with South Park's controversial episodes. They don't get removed completely. They just get slowly edited over time until the original doesn't exist legally anymore. You can find the unedited version online through unofficial sources, but on HBO Max and Paramount Plus, you get the censored version. The network went back and made the episodes safer later. Cartoon Wars Part 1 became a test case for how networks handle controversial content. Do they support their creators, or do they give in to threats and fear? Comedy Central chose fear. They censored the episode in small ways at first. Then they went back and censored more later. The episode is still available, but it's been messed with. And what it was trying to say about censorship became ironic. South Park made an episode defending free speech and criticizing networks for giving in to pressure. Then the network that aired it proved South Park right by censoring. The whole situation showed exactly what the creators were warning about. Once you start censoring because of fear, it never stops. The line keeps moving. More content gets edited, and original versions disappear. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Next up is Cartoon Wars Part 2. Section 3. Cartoon Wars Part 2. Cartoon Wars Part 2 came out 1 week after Part 1. This was the episode everyone was waiting for. Would South Park actually show Muhammad on screen? The answer came right away. Comedy Central said no. The network censored the episode before it aired. They blocked Muhammad out completely. Anytime he showed up, they covered him with a black box and the words, "Comedy Central has refused to broadcast an image of Muhammad." The creators were furious. They wrote the episode to make a point about censorship. The network proved that point by censoring it. The whole thing became a mess that shows exactly what happens when fear beats free speech. The episode picked up right where Part 1 ended. Cartman and Kyle were still in Hollywood arguing with network executives. The Family Guy episode with Muhammad was about to air. The executives had to make a final decision. In the South Park version, they decide to air it. Family Guy goes on TV. Muhammad shows up as a character. He's just hanging out with Peter Griffin. He's not doing anything offensive. He's just there. The joke is showing Muhammad isn't actually a big deal. He's just another character. But the fear around it made everyone panic. South Park was making the point that the controversy was overblown. Showing Muhammad shouldn't be this huge issue. The fear is what makes it dangerous, not the picture itself. But Comedy Central didn't let viewers see that. Every time Muhammad showed up on screen in the fake Family Guy episode, Comedy Central blocked him out. They put a giant black censor box over him. Text showed up saying the network refused to show the image. This happened multiple times in the episode. The censorship was obvious and in your face. You could hear characters talking about Muhammad. You could see everyone else on screen. But Muhammad was hidden. The irony was brutal. South Park made an episode about networks being too scared to show Muhammad. Then Comedy Central was too scared to let South Park show Muhammad. The network became the joke. The creators fought this decision. Matt Stone and Trey Parker wanted Muhammad to show up uncensored. That was the whole point of the two-parter. They wanted to prove comedy should be able to handle any subject without fear. They argued with Comedy Central executives. They said censoring the episode would ruin the entire message. But Comedy Central wouldn't budge. The network was terrified of what would happen. They'd seen what happened with the Danish cartoons. They didn't want to be the next target. So they told the creators Muhammad had to be censored. The creators had no choice. Comedy Central owned the broadcast rights. What the network said was final. The episode kept going with the story. After the fake Family Guy episode aired in South Park's world, nothing happened. No riots, no attacks, no violence. Everyone panicked for nothing. The fear was worse than reality. This was South Park's point. The threats work because networks believe them. If everyone just refused to be scared, the threats would lose power. But one person standing alone gets targeted, so everyone gives in together. The episode showed this cycle happening. Networks censor themselves. Threats keep working. More content gets restricted. What's acceptable keeps changing. Meanwhile, Cartman had his own side story. He didn't really care about Muhammad or free speech. He just wanted Family Guy canceled. When the Muhammad controversy didn't work, he changed tactics. He went to the Family Guy studios and tried to physically destroy the studio. He broke in at night with stuff to blow up the building. Kyle followed him and tried to stop him. They fought in the studio. Cartman was willing to commit terrorism to cancel a show he didn't like. Kyle was trying to protect creative freedom, even for a show he didn't really care about. The fight represented the bigger argument. How far will people go to silence things they don't like? And how hard will others fight to protect speech they don't even like? The episode ended with Kyle giving a speech. He talked straight to the audience about censorship and fear. He said giving in to threats meant the terrorists won. He said comedy had to be allowed to make fun of everything, or it can't make fun of anything. Choosing what's off limits meant some groups got special protection and others didn't. That wasn't equality. That was favoritism based on fear. The speech was powerful and clear. It was exactly what the creators wanted to say. But even the speech got partly censored. Comedy Central bleeped certain words. They cut certain lines. The speech about censorship got censored. You can't make this up. When the episode aired on April 12, 2006, viewers were shocked by the censorship. They expected South Park to push limits. Instead, they got black boxes and bleeps. The online reaction was instant. Fans were angry at Comedy Central. They felt betrayed. South Park had always been the show that didn't back down. Now the network was making them back down. Message boards filled with complaints. People posted the censored images online to protest. They shared screenshots of Muhammad from Super Best Friends and other uncensored times he showed up. They wanted to show this character had been shown before without problems. The controversy was made up by fear, not actual offense. The creators spoke out after the episode aired. They gave interviews criticizing Comedy Central's decision. Trey Parker said the network completely missed the point. Matt Stone said censoring an episode about censorship was ridiculous. They were both frustrated and angry, but they also knew they were stuck. They couldn't air South Park anywhere else. Comedy Central had exclusive rights. If the network wanted to censor, the creators had to deal with it. This power difference became obvious to everyone watching. The people making the art didn't control how it got shown. The company broadcasting it made all final decisions based on fear and money. Comedy Central defended their choice. They put out a statement saying they were being respectful of religious beliefs. They said they didn't want to offend Muslims. But this explanation sounded fake to many viewers. The network still aired episodes making fun of Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, and other religions. They still showed Jesus as a regular character doing ridiculous things. The only religion getting special protection was Islam. And the reason wasn't respect, it was fear. No one threatened Comedy Central over Jesus jokes. People threatened them over Muhammad pictures. So Muhammad got censored and Jesus didn't. The double standard was obvious. The censorship went beyond just the visual blocks. Comedy Central went back later and added more bleeps to the episode. Lines that had audio originally got muted in later broadcasts and streaming versions. The network kept editing the episode over time. Each new version took out more content. It's hard to find the original version now. Most platforms have the heavily edited version. The episode exists, but it's been messed with. The message about censorship got censored. The irony became the story. Looking at Cartoon Wars Part 2 now, it's a turning point. This was when South Park's creators realized they couldn't beat network fear. They could write whatever they wanted. They could argue and fight and make their case, but if Comedy Central said no, that was it. The episode proved threatening violence works. Networks will give in to protect themselves. Content gets restricted. artists lose control, and the people making threats learn their tactics work. This encouraged more threats, more demands for censorship, more episodes getting pulled or edited. Cartoon Wars Part 2 wasn't just about Muhammad. It was about what happens when fear becomes the rule. And once that example was set, there was no going back. Moving on, we have 200 and 201. Section 4, 200 and 201. Episodes 200 and 201 are the biggest ban in South Park history. These two episodes came out in 2010 in Season 14. They were supposed to celebrate the show's 200th episode. The creators brought back tons of old characters and references. They wanted to do something big, but they also dealt with the Muhammad controversy again. They tried to show the censorship from Cartoon Wars didn't fix anything. It made things worse. The network censored these episodes even more than before. Then Comedy Central banned both episodes completely. You can't watch them on any legal streaming platform, they don't air on TV, they're gone. Only the DVDs have them, and even those are censored. The setup for these episodes was ambitious. South Park had been on for 14 years. They'd made hundreds of characters and storylines. For the 200th episode, they decided to bring everyone back. Every celebrity the show ever made fun of. Every villain. Every random character. All of them team up to sue South Park. Tom Cruise leads the group. He's still mad about getting made fun of in old episodes. He gets all the other celebrities together. They make a class action lawsuit. They have one demand. They want Muhammad. Not to make fun of him, they want to steal his power. The joke is, Muhammad can't be shown, so he has this magical immunity. If they get that immunity, they can never be made fun of again. This setup let South Park talk about censorship again. The celebrities want Muhammad's power to be safe from being made fun of. This is exactly what censorship does. It makes certain topics untouchable. Once something becomes forbidden, it gets power. The show was pointing out that protecting Muhammad from being shown gave him special status. Other religious figures don't get that. So Islam gets special treatment not because of respect, but because of fear. The celebrities in the episode get this. They want to be feared the same way. They want to be off limits. That's why they want Muhammad's power. The boys have to find Muhammad to stop the lawsuit. They don't want to give him to Tom Cruise, so they go looking for him. They find out he's been hiding, he's been protected by different groups who don't want him shown. The boys convince him to come out and help, but they have to keep him hidden. South Park decided to put Muhammad in a bear costume. He walks around dressed as a bear, so you can't see who he is. The costume becomes like physical censorship. Muhammad is there, but hidden. You know he's under the bear suit, but you can't see him. It's ridiculous, and that's the point. Censoring him doesn't make him disappear. It just makes everything ridiculous. Comedy Central censored the bear costume anyway. Even though you couldn't see Muhammad, the network put a black box over him with text saying they wouldn't show him. So Muhammad was already hidden in a bear costume, and then the network added another layer of censorship on top. You couldn't see the character at all. Not even the bear costume. Just a black box. The censorship got so extreme, it was censoring censorship. The creators were furious. They specifically made the bear costume as a compromise. They thought showing Muhammad in a disguise would make the network happy, but Comedy Central was too scared even for that. Episode 201 went further. The celebrities capture Muhammad and try to steal his power. There's a big reveal the power doesn't come from Muhammad. It comes from fear. The ginger kids have the same power because people are scared to make fun of them too. The episode was making the point, any group can become untouchable if threats are taken seriously enough. The power isn't natural. It's given by people who give in to pressure. This was South Park's clearest statement on censorship yet. Fear makes topics untouchable. And once you have untouchable topics, you don't have free speech anymore. But Comedy Central censored the message. Kyle gives a speech at the end of 201 explaining everything. He talks about fear and censorship and why giving in to threats is wrong. It's the main point of both episodes. The whole point the creators wanted to make. Comedy Central bleeped the whole speech. Every word. You can see Kyle talking. You can see his mouth moving. But all you hear is one long bleep for 30 seconds. The speech was completely impossible to hear. No one knows what Kyle said, unless they read the leaked script later. The network took out the message about censorship from an episode about censorship. It was Cartoon Wars all over again, but worse. Before the episodes even finished airing, threats started coming in. A radical website posted a warning to Matt Stone and Trey Parker. The post included a photo of Theo van Gogh, a Dutch filmmaker who got murdered after making a film critical of Islam. The message was clear: show Muhammad and you'll end up like him. The FBI got involved. They looked into the threats. The creators got police protection. Comedy Central panicked. After 201 aired, the network made a decision. Both episodes would be banned. They pulled 200 and 201 from all future broadcasts. They took them off the network's website. When streaming platforms got South Park, these two episodes weren't included. Comedy Central refused to let anyone have them. The ban was complete. The creators spoke out against the decision. They said banning the episodes meant the threats worked. They'd proven violence and intimidation could get content removed. This would encourage more threats in the future. If it worked on South Park, it would work on other shows. Matt Stone and Trey Parker were frustrated and defeated. They tried multiple times to make this point. Super Best Friends got pulled, Cartoon Wars got censored, now 200 and 201 got banned completely. Every time they tried to defend free speech, the network gave in to fear. There was nothing more they could do. The ban made a weird situation for fans. If you bought the season 14 DVD, you could watch 200 and 201, but even the DVD versions were censored. The black boxes over Muhammad stayed. Kyle's speech stayed bleeped. You could own the episodes, but you couldn't watch them uncensored. The only way to see the uncensored versions was through leaked scripts online. Fans typed out what Kyle said in his speech. They shared screenshots of what Muhammad looked like under the bear costume before the black boxes. These unofficial versions became the only record of what the creators actually made. The official versions were messed with from the start. Comedy Central's decision had lasting effects. The ban sent a message to every other network and streaming platform. If you show Muhammad, you'll get threats and you'll pull the content. This affected shows beyond South Park. Other animated shows avoided the topic completely. No one wanted to be the next target. The chilling effect was exactly what the creators warned about. One ban leads to more. One restricted topic leads to more. Soon whole areas of commentary become off limits. Not because of laws, but because of fear. Looking at 200 and 201 now, they're the peak of South Park's censorship problems. These episodes had everything: ambition, comedy, commentary. They were supposed to celebrate a milestone. Instead, they became a symbol of defeat. The creators tried to make a point about censorship and got censored. They tried to show fear was the real problem, and the network proved them right by banning the episodes because of fear. The ban is still happening today. Over 10 years later, you still can't stream 200 and 201 legally. They've been erased from memory. They're on DVDs that fewer people own every year. Eventually they'll be lost, except for the pirated versions online. That's what happens when networks choose fear over art. Content disappears. Messages get silenced. And the threats win. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Up next is the censored audio of episode 201. Section 5. The censored audio of episode 201. The most mysterious part of the 200 and 201 ban is Kyle's censored speech. At the end of episode 201, Kyle gives a speech explaining the whole point of both episodes. He talks about fear and censorship and intimidation. He explains why giving in to threats is dangerous. The speech lasts about 30 seconds. It should have been the climax, but Comedy Central bleeped the whole thing. Every single word. You can see Kyle's mouth moving, you can see the other characters listening, but all you hear is one long bleep. No one who watched the episode legally knows what Kyle actually said. The only way to know is through leaked scripts that got posted online years later. The speech wasn't about Muhammad specifically. It was about the bigger issue of censorship. Kyle was explaining why certain topics become untouchable. He said threatening violence works because people are scared. When someone threatens to hurt you if you say something, most people stop. That's natural. But when everyone stops saying it, the topic becomes forbidden. And once something is forbidden, it gets power. The people making threats realize it works, so they threaten more. They make more stuff off limits. Eventually, you can't talk about anything controversial because someone will threaten violence. Kyle's speech explained all of this clearly. It was the message Matt Stone and Trey Parker had been trying to make for years. And Comedy Central shut it down. The decision to bleep the speech happened late, when they were making the episode. The creators finished the episode with Kyle's speech in it. They sent it to Comedy Central. The network looked at it and panicked. The speech was too direct. It pointed out the exact thing that was happening in real life. Comedy Central was censoring South Park because of threats. Kyle's speech explained why that was wrong. The network didn't want to air criticism of what they did, so they told the creators the speech had to go. The creators said no. They said the speech was the whole point of both episodes. Without it, 200 and 201 didn't make sense. The network said they didn't care. Either the speech got bleeped or the episodes wouldn't air at all. The creators had no power. Comedy Central owned the rights. The network could do whatever they wanted. Matt Stone and Trey Parker could complain, but they couldn't stop it. So Comedy Central took the finished episode and bleeped Kyle's whole speech. They didn't just bleep certain words, they bleeped everything. The whole 30 seconds became one long bleep sound. You couldn't understand a single word. The visual of Kyle talking stayed, but the sound was completely gone. This made the ending impossible to understand for anyone watching. Kyle looks like he's giving an important speech. Everyone listens seriously. Then the episode ends, but you don't know what he said. The climax of the story got erased. When episode 201 aired on April 21st, 2010, fans were confused by the bleeping. They knew something important got removed. The bleep went on too long to be a normal curse word. This was clearly censorship of content, not language. Online communities right away started trying to figure out what Kyle said. Some people said they had inside sources at South Park Studios. They posted transcripts of the speech. Others said those transcripts were fake. No one could prove anything. The mystery around the speech made it more famous than it probably would have been. Everyone wanted to know what Comedy Central was so scared of. A few weeks later, someone leaked the script for episode 201. The leak had Kyle's full speech exactly as written. Fans could finally read what he said. The speech was calm and reasonable. It wasn't inflammatory or offensive. Kyle explained intimidation only works if people give in. He said letting one group be safe from criticism because they threaten violence means anyone can be safe if they threaten enough. He said the only way to stop this is to refuse to be scared. If everyone just kept making jokes about everything, the threats would lose power. The speech was basically defending free speech and explaining how censorship spreads. It wasn't controversial in what it said. It was controversial because it described exactly what Comedy Central was doing. Reading the leaked speech made the censorship worse. Fans could see there was nothing in it that deserved bleeping. Kyle wasn't insulting Islam. He wasn't attacking any religion. He was talking about how intimidation works. The network censored a speech about censorship because the speech criticized censorship. The irony was overwhelming. South Park tried to make a point about how fear leads to self-censorship. Comedy Central proved that by censoring the explanation of self-censorship. The whole situation became a perfect example of what the creators were warning about. The leaked script spread all over the internet. Websites posted it, forums talked about it, YouTube videos had people reading it out loud. Fans made their own versions of the episode with the speech uncensored. These fan edits used voice actors to remake what Kyle said. The edits weren't official, but they let people see the episode how it was supposed to be. Comedy Central sent legal letters to some sites hosting the uncensored versions. They wanted to keep the speech hidden. But the internet doesn't work that way. Once something leaks, it spreads forever. You can still find the full speech online easily. The official version stays censored, but the unofficial versions are everywhere. The creators never got to put out what they actually made. Even on the season 14 DVD, Kyle's speech is bleeped. Comedy Central controlled the DVD release. They made sure the censorship stayed. The only way to hear the speech is through leaked scripts or fan versions. The official version is permanently messed with. This made a weird situation where the pirated versions are more complete than the legal versions. People who bought the DVD got a censored version. People who downloaded it illegally got closer to what the creators actually made. Matt Stone and Trey Parker talked about the censorship in interviews. They said bleeping Kyle's speech was the most frustrating thing Comedy Central ever did to them. The speech was why they made both episodes. Everything built to that moment. Removing it destroyed the story. Trey Parker said, "It felt like writing a book and having the publisher remove the last chapter. You can read the book, but you don't get the ending. The story just stops. That's what happened to 201. The episode builds to Kyle explaining everything, then it just ends with a bleep. New viewers who don't know about the controversy must be totally confused. The censorship also set a dangerous example. It showed networks will hide criticism of their own censorship. Comedy Central didn't just censor Muhammad. They censored talking about censoring Muhammad. They censored explanations of why censorship is bad. This made a loop where the topic got harder to talk about with each new restriction. First, you can't show Muhammad, then you can't talk about not being allowed to show Muhammad, then you can't explain why that's a problem. Each layer of censorship makes the next layer easier to justify. The network removes content about removing content. Looking at the censored speech now, it's the ultimate defeat for South Park's message. The creators spent 2 episodes explaining how censorship based on fear works. They showed how it works step by step. They built to a speech that explained everything. Then, the network proved them right by censoring that exact speech. The irony was too perfect. Comedy Central became the bad guy of the story they were showing. They showed the problem while hiding the explanation of the problem. Kyle's speech exists in leaked form online, but officially, legally, it's still bleeped, still censored, still unavailable. The mystery stays for anyone who only watches legally. And that mystery is the point. When networks censor criticism of censorship, censorship wins. Moving on to Trapped in the Closet. Section 6. Trapped in the Closet. Trapped in the Closet came out in 2005 in Season 9. This episode went after Scientology. The show explained Scientology's origin story with text that said, "This is what Scientologists actually believe." It showed Xenu and Phaetons and alien souls. It made Tom Cruise look ridiculous by literally showing him hiding in a closet and refusing to come out. The episode destroyed Scientology's mystery by showing their secret beliefs and making them sound ridiculous. Scientologists were furious. The church supposedly pressured Comedy Central to stop showing the episode in reruns. Isaac Hayes quit the show over it, and the episode got banned in multiple countries. It still airs in the US, but with restrictions. Some streaming services won't show it, and it shows how even powerful organizations can censor content through pressure and threats. Scientology had never been a big target for South Park before this episode. The show mentioned it briefly, but Trapped in the Closet was a full attack. The episode started with Stan taking a personality test at a Scientology center. The test tells him he's depressed and needs help. They give him Scientology stuff to read. Stan reads about Xenu, the alien dictator who brought billions of aliens to Earth millions of years ago and killed them with volcanoes. Their souls became Phaetons that stick to humans and cause mental problems. This is actual Scientology belief. The show didn't make it up. They just showed it exactly as Scientologists believe it. How ridiculous it was spoke for itself. The episode then showed Stan being declared the reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard, who founded Scientology. The church leaders freak out. They think Hubbard came back. They bring Stan to meet Tom Cruise. Cruise is excited. He thinks Hubbard can say his acting is good. Stan watches some of Cruise's movies and says they're okay, but not great. Cruise gets upset and locks himself in Stan's closet. He won't come out. Stan and others try to get him to come out. They literally tell him to come out of the closet. The gay joke was obvious. Cruise had dealt with rumors about being gay for years. South Park was making fun of those rumors and also making fun of how he can't take criticism. Other celebrities get involved. John Travolta shows up and goes in the closet with Cruise. R. Kelly shows up and wants to be in the closet too. The closet gets crowded with celebrities hiding from criticism. Meanwhile, the Scientology leaders realize Stan isn't really Hubbard reborn. He's just a kid. They try to sue him for insulting the church. Stan tells them their beliefs are ridiculous and they shouldn't sue people for saying so. The episode ends with text saying the episode was written by many people and challenging Scientology to sue all of them. The credits listed everyone as John Smith or Jane Smith. It was South Park protecting its workers from individual lawsuits while still making their point. When Trapped in the Closet first aired on November 16, 2005, the reaction was instant. Scientologists were outraged. The church thought the episode was a hateful attack on their religion. They said the beliefs were shown wrong. But former Scientologists said the show got it right. The Xenu story is exactly what high-level members learn after paying thousands of dollars for courses. South Park just revealed it for free. This broke how Scientology makes money. The church keeps beliefs secret to keep the mystery and control. Once those beliefs are public and made fun of, they lose power. The episode really hurt Scientology's ability to get new members. People who might have joined after seeing their ads now knew what they'd learn. And it sounded crazy. Tom Cruise supposedly went straight to Viacom, Comedy Central's parent company. He supposedly threatened not to promote Mission Impossible 3 if the episode aired again. The movie was a huge investment for Paramount Pictures, which Viacom owned. Losing Cruise's help promoting the movie could hurt how much money it made. Viacom gave in. They told Comedy Central to stop showing Trapped in the Closet in reruns. The episode disappeared. It was supposed to air again a few weeks later. Comedy Central canceled it at the last minute. They said technical problems. Nobody believed that excuse. Everyone knew Scientology got to them. Isaac Hayes quit South Park a few months later. Hayes voiced Chef from the start. He was a Scientologist. He said he couldn't be part of a show that made fun of religious beliefs anymore. Matt Stone and Trey Parker called him a hypocrite. Hayes was fine when the show made fun of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and other religions for 9 seasons. But when Scientology got hit, suddenly it was too much. The creators thought the Church of Scientology pressured Hayes to quit. Hayes was a famous member. The church couldn't let him stay on a show that revealed their beliefs. Whether Hayes quit on his own or was forced, the result was the same. Chef left the show. South Park killed the character in a brutal episode making fun of Hayes for leaving. The episode did come back on TV eventually. After the first ban, Comedy Central quietly started showing it again a few months later. They never explained taking it off. The network just started showing it again and hoped people would forget. But the damage was done. Everyone knew Scientology successfully pressured a network to pull content. The ban might have been temporary, but it showed even powerful organizations can censor through money threats. Cruise had power through the movie deal. He used it. Viacom chose money over creative freedom. The episode came back, but the example was set. Other countries had their own problems with the episode. Some countries banned it completely. Others edited it a lot. The UK pulled it from some broadcasts. Networks in Europe and Asia didn't show it. The reasons were different. Some said religious sensitivity laws. Others just didn't want legal trouble. Scientology is known for suing people a lot. They sue critics all the time. Networks didn't want to be the next target, so they removed the episode first. It was easier to skip one episode than fight a long court battle. Streaming platforms have been all over the place with Trapped in the Closet. Some services have it, others don't. HBO Max has it, but some international streaming services don't have it. Whether you can watch it depends on local laws and company decisions. This made a situation where the episode exists in some places but not others. Whether you can watch it depends on where you live and what service you use. Streaming being worldwide made censorship more complicated. A show you can watch in the US might be blocked everywhere else. And platforms have to deal with different legal systems and cultural sensitivities. Looking at Trapped in the Closet now, it's still one of South Park's most controversial episodes, not because of what's in it, but because of who it made angry. Scientology is a rich organization with money to pressure networks and studios. They use that money to punish South Park. The temporary ban sent a message. Make fun of us and we'll hurt you financially. The episode came back, but other creators learned. Scientology became risky to go after. Most shows avoid them now. South Park was willing to take the hit, but not everyone can do that. The episode exists today, but with a history of censorship and pressure behind it. It proves powerful organizations don't need government censorship. They can use money power to remove content they don't like. And that's just as good as any official ban. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Next up is Bloody Mary. Section 7, Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary aired in December 2005 during Season 9. The episode was about alcoholism and Catholic stuff that made religious groups angry. The main plot showed a statue of the Virgin Mary bleeding from a specific body part. People thought it was a miracle. They came from all over to see it. The Catholic Church investigated and declared it real, but the show revealed the statue was just menstruating. The episode used this gross joke to talk about miracle claims and alcoholism treatment. Catholic organizations were furious. They said it was disrespectful and offensive. Some countries banned the episode completely, others edited it heavily, and Comedy Central pulled it from reruns in certain markets. The episode still exists, but it's restricted in ways that show how religious pressure works differently around the world. The episode started with Randy getting arrested for drunk driving. He had a blood alcohol level way over the legal limit. The court ordered him to attend Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. Randy went to AA and heard people talk about alcoholism as a disease. They said alcoholics can't control their drinking. They're powerless against alcohol. Randy took this literally. He decided he was sick and helpless. He stopped trying to control himself. He used the disease label as an excuse to keep drinking. The show was making fun of how some people use AA's disease idea to avoid taking responsibility. South Park wasn't saying alcoholism isn't real. They were saying some people hide behind the label instead of actually trying to get better. Meanwhile, a statue of the Virgin Mary in a nearby town started bleeding. The bleeding came from an unusual place. The statue was bleeding from between its legs. People saw this as a miracle. They thought Mary was crying blood through a different part of her body. Catholics rushed to the statue. They believed touching it would cure diseases and solve problems. Randy heard about it. He thought if the statue could cure diseases, it could cure his alcoholism. He drove to the statue with his family. He pushed through the crowd. He wanted the Virgin Mary to heal him so he wouldn't be an alcoholic anymore. The Catholic Church sent people to look into it, the bleeding statue. They examined it carefully. They took samples of the blood. They prayed in front of it. Then they made an announcement. The church said the bleeding was a real miracle. The Pope himself came to see it. He confirmed that the Virgin Mary was performing a miracle through the statue. People celebrated. They thought God was reaching out to them directly. The town became a place where people traveled to for religious reasons. Thousands of people came to see the miracle and ask for healing. But then someone pointed out where the blood was coming from. The statue wasn't crying blood. It was menstruating. The Virgin Mary statue had a period. The show said this clearly. Characters said it on screen. The joke was that everyone was treating normal biological processes as divine intervention. South Park was making fun of how people see miracles in normal things. The church had validated something that wasn't spiritual at all. It was just nature working as designed. The episode used gross humor to make a point about how badly people want to believe in miracles. Randy did get healed by the statue, but not in a miracle way. The statue didn't cure his alcoholism. Instead, Randy realized the whole thing was ridiculous. He saw people worshiping a menstruating statue. He understood he'd been acting just as ridiculous. He'd been treating alcoholism like a curse that needed divine intervention. But it wasn't. It was a problem he could actually address through choices and willpower. The episode ended with Randy saying no to AA's disease idea. He decided he wasn't powerless. He could choose not to drink. He didn't need miracles or higher powers. He just needed to take responsibility. When Bloody Mary aired on December 7th, 2005, Catholic groups complained right away. The Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights called it hate speech. They said showing the Virgin Mary statue having a period was really offensive to Catholics everywhere. They said the episode went from satire to bigotry. The group pressured Comedy Central to pull the episode. They got people to write letters. They contacted advertisers. They made it clear they wanted the episode gone. Comedy Central stood by the episode at first. The network said it was satire protected by free speech. They aired it as scheduled and put it in the normal rerun rotation. But other countries reacted differently. Catholic groups in other countries had more power than in the US. In some places, the church had direct control over what could be on TV. New Zealand banned the episode after Catholic groups complained. The country's broadcast standards people looked at it and decided it was too offensive to air. They said the period imagery crossed the line. Other countries followed. Parts of Europe limited it. Latin American markets pulled it. The episode became unavailable in regions with strong Catholic populations. Networks didn't want to fight against the church. They just removed the episode to avoid conflict. Even in the US, Comedy Central eventually made changes. The network didn't ban Bloody Mary completely, but they stopped putting it in heavy rotation. The episode airs occasionally, but much less frequently than other Season 9 episodes. When streaming became the primary way people watch South Park, the episode's availability varied. Some platforms included it, others didn't. The decisions seemed to depend on what region it was and how risky the company thought it was. Places with lots of Catholics often didn't get the episode. Places where religion wasn't as powerful kept it available. The controversy showed how different religions get treated differently. South Park had made fun of Christianity countless times. They'd shown Jesus as a regular character doing ridiculous things. They'd made fun of Christian beliefs and practices all the time. But those episodes never got the same level of organized pushback. Catholic groups tried with Bloody Mary. They used the same tactics that worked for Scientology and would later work for Islamic groups. But they had mixed results. The episode got restricted in some places, but not others. The US mostly kept it. Other countries with more Catholic influence took it down. The episode also showed how gross humor makes censorship easier. Bloody Mary wasn't just satirizing Catholic miracle claims. It was doing it in the most offensive way possible. A statue having a period is meant to shock and gross people out. The creators knew this would upset people. That was the point. But it also gave censors an easy excuse. They could say the episode wasn't banned for religious reasons. It was banned for crude content. The period imagery gave them an excuse. They didn't have to defend religious censorship. They could say they were protecting what's decent. Looking at Bloody Mary now, it's in a restricted state. You can watch it in most places, but not everywhere. The ban isn't complete like with 200 and 201. It's selective. Certain countries don't allow it. Certain streaming regions don't include it. And even where you can watch it, it airs less than other episodes. The Catholic Church successfully limited how many people could see the episode without getting it totally removed. This is a different kind of censorship. Not a full ban, but quietly hiding it. The episode stays hidden enough that most regular viewers never see it. Only hardcore fans who look for it will find it. And keeping it from spreading was probably what the church wanted. They couldn't erase the episode entirely, but they could make sure it didn't spread too much. That partial win showed religious groups they could affect content even in countries with strong free speech. You just had to apply the right pressure in the right markets. Moving on, we have Jubilee. Section 8, Jubilee. Jubilee aired in July 1999 during Season 3. This was an early episode about religious satire. The plot followed Kyle and Ike going to a Jewish scout camp called Jubilee. The camp featured Jewish scouts doing activities and earning badges. But things got weird when the episode revealed the camp's secret ceremony. The kids summoned Moses, who appeared as a giant floating machine-like being. The episode made fun of both Jewish traditions and how people make kids' activities too serious. Some Jewish groups complained about how Moses was shown. Others found it funny. The episode faced restrictions in certain markets. It got edited for syndication. And it started a pattern of South Park treating Judaism differently than other religions, because Matt Stone and Trey Parker are Jewish themselves. This gave them more freedom, but also brought different kinds of criticism. The episode opened with Kyle and Ike preparing to attend Jewish scout camp. Their parents were excited. They wanted the boys to connect with where they came from. The camp was called Jubilee, and it was the Jewish version of a Boy Scout jamboree. Kyle wasn't thrilled about going. He thought it would be boring, but his parents insisted. Ike was too young to understand what was happening. He just went along with whatever Kyle did. They arrived at camp and met the counselors and other scouts. Everything seemed normal at first. The kids did typical camp activities. They learned songs, they practiced traditions, they got badges by doing Jewish-themed challenges. But then the episode showed the camp had a darker secret. The adult leaders were part of a group called the Elders of Zion. This was South Park talking about an old anti-Jewish conspiracy theory. The real Elders of Zion was a fake document used to spread hate against Jewish people. South Park turned it into a joke. In their version, the elders were real but silly. They wore robes and did ridiculous rituals. They weren't trying to control the world. They were just trying to run a scout camp. The joke was taking an anti-Jewish myth and making it ridiculous. The elders did a ceremony to call Moses. They needed Moses to give them guidance for the camp. The kids watched as the ritual started. The elders chanted and waved their hands. Then Moses appeared. But he wasn't the biblical figure from the Ten Commandments. He was a giant glowing machine. He had rotating parts and flashing lights. He looked like something from a sci-fi movie. He spoke in a deep, mechanical voice. This was South Park's version of Moses. Not a wise old man, but a cosmic being beyond human form. How they showed him was weird and unexpected. It was funny, but also kind of respectful in a weird way. The show was saying Moses was so holy and powerful he couldn't even be shown as a human. Moses gave the elders instructions for running the camp. He told them to continue teaching the children about their heritage. He approved their plans and blessed the camp. Then he disappeared. The ceremony ended. The kids were supposed to go back to normal activities, but things went wrong. One of the counselors named Garth wanted more power. He tried to summon Moses again without permission. He wanted to use Moses for his own reasons. The other elders tried to stop him, but Garth was too strong. He took control of the ceremony and brought Moses back. This time, Moses was mad. He didn't want to be summoned twice. He started destroying things. The camp fell into chaos. Kyle and the other scouts had to save everyone. They realized Garth was using Moses wrong. Moses wasn't supposed to be controlled or commanded. He was supposed to be respected and asked for help only when needed. Kyle convinced the other kids to work together. They did a counter ritual. They asked Moses to forgive them and return to wherever he came from. Moses listened. He calmed down. He disappeared again. The camp was saved. The elders punished Garth. Everything returned to normal. Kyle learned traditions and ceremonies matter, even if they seem silly. When Jubilee aired on July 28, 1999, people had mixed reactions. Some Jewish viewers loved it. They thought making fun of it was funny and well-meaning. Matt Stone is Jewish. He grew up attending Jewish events. The episode came from personal experience. Stone knew the culture he was mocking. This made the satire real. It wasn't an outsider making fun of something he didn't get. It was an insider making fun of his own traditions. Many Jewish viewers liked that difference. They laughed at the Moses machine and the silly rituals because they could tell it was making fun with love. But other Jewish groups were less happy. The Anti-Defamation League reviewed the episode. They didn't ask for it to be banned, but they said they were worried about how Moses was shown. They worried non-Jewish viewers might think it was real. They didn't want people thinking Jews actually believed Moses was a giant machine. The ADL said the episode could make stereotypes worse if people didn't get it was satire. They asked Comedy Central to be careful about how they advertised the episode. The network agreed to add context when they showed it again, but they didn't pull it or edit it. The bigger problem came with reruns. When South Park started airing in reruns on other networks, those networks had different standards. Basic cable channels that bought rerun rights wanted to edit episodes to make them more family-friendly. Jubilee got edited. Networks cut certain lines. They shortened the Moses scenes. They removed references they thought were too edgy. The edited version showed during the day. The full version only showed late at night or on premium channels. This made it so most people watching reruns saw a messed-with version. The original full episode was harder to find. Other countries also handled Jubilee differently. Some countries aired it without issue. Others were more cautious. Networks in Europe usually kept it. They were less sensitive about Jewish content. But some Middle Eastern countries banned it. They didn't want to show anything that showed Jewish traditions, even as satire. The bans weren't official from the government. The networks just decided not to include the episode in their South Park packages. It was easier to skip one episode than deal with possible backlash. The episode became a weird test for how South Park handled Judaism versus other religions. The show could be harsher with Christian satire because Christianity was the main religion in America. Christians were used to getting made fun of. They had the cultural power to handle the jokes. Judaism was different. Jewish people were a minority. They'd been actually persecuted. Making fun of Judaism came with historical baggage. South Park tried to handle this by having one creator who was Jewish. Stone being involved gave them permission to make fun of his own background, but it didn't protect them from all criticism. Looking at Jubilee now, it's an interesting early example of how South Park handles religion. The episode was gentler than later religious satires. How they showed Moses was weird, but not mean. The jokes were about camp culture and rituals, not about actual Jewish beliefs. The episode respected Judaism even while making fun of it. This balance worked for most viewers. The episode didn't get banned as much as later controversial stuff. It got edited for reruns, but that happened to most episodes. The restrictions were about language and ratings, not religious censorship. The episode proved South Park could make fun of Judaism without big backlash if they did it carefully. Having a Jewish creator helped. Making the jokes loving instead of hateful helped. And choosing targets like Scout Camp instead of main beliefs helped. Jubilee showed the show could balance between satire and being offensive when they wanted. The restrictions were mild compared to what came later, but it started a pattern. Even early on, South Park's religious stuff was being watched, edited, and limited. The censorship started small, with Jubilee. It would get way worse with later episodes. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Up next is It Hits the Fan. Section 9. It Hits the Fan. It Hits the Fan aired in June 2001 during Season 5. This episode was about TV language rules and censorship. The story was about a fake TV show called Cop Drama that was going to say the word shit on network television uncensored. This was a big deal back then. Broadcast networks couldn't say certain curse words on TV. The FCC had strict rules. Cable networks had more freedom, but still avoided the worst words early in the day. South Park decided to test those limits. The episode said shit over 160 times. Comedy Central let it air, but the network got immediate backlash. The FCC didn't fine them because cable isn't regulated the same way as regular TV, but parent groups complained. Advertisers got nervous, and the episode got heavily edited for future showings and reruns. It showed how language censorship works differently than content censorship, but still limits what shows can do. The setup was simple. The boys heard that a network TV show called Cop Drama was going to say shit on air for the first time ever. This was being advertised as a historic moment in TV. The network was making a big deal about it. They ran ads saying the show was breaking barriers. They made it seem important and brave. Everyone in South Park got excited. They planned viewing parties. They talked about how TV was changing. The hype was ridiculous. It was just one curse word, but the network treated it like the moon landing. South Park was making fun of how TV promotes controversial stuff to get better ratings. The show aired within the show. The Cop Drama characters said shit on screen. The South Park characters watching at home cheered. They thought it was cool and edgy. Then, something weird started happening. People in South Park started saying shit all the time. It became the only word anyone used. They said it in every sentence. They worked it into normal conversations. The curse word spread like a virus. People couldn't stop themselves. The show was making the idea that bad language spreads literal. Once you hear a word on TV, you start using it everywhere. The curse word problem got worse. People started getting sick from saying shit too much. A plague broke out. People died. Their bodies couldn't handle too much profanity. The word had become poisonous. Kyle and Stan realized what was happening. The TV show had let something dangerous into the world. By making the curse word normal on TV, they'd made it spread out of control. Now it was killing people. The boys had to find a way to stop it. They went to the Knights of Standards and Practices, a secret group that protected language rules. The Knights explained certain words had to stay forbidden. If everyone said them all the time, they lost meaning and became poison. The boys helped the Knights lock the curse word away again. They did a ritual that made shit forbidden again. People stopped saying it all the time. The plague ended. Lives were saved. The episode's message was, some boundaries exist for reasons, not because the words are evil, but because making everything okay makes nothing special. Curse words have power because we limit them. If you say them all the time, they become meaningless noise. The show was defending censorship in a weird way. Not total censorship, but the idea that some limits help keep things impactful. But the episode also broke every rule it was defending. South Park said shit 162 times during the episode. They showed an on-screen counter keeping track. Every time someone said it, the number went up. The counter became a running joke. Characters would say shit multiple times in one sentence just to make the number go up. The episode was arguing for language restrictions while breaking those restrictions as much as possible. It was South Park's usual contradiction. They made fun of both sides. They made fun of networks for overhyping curse words, and they made fun of censorship by saying shit more times than any show ever. When It Hits the Fan aired on June 20th, 2001, Comedy Central let the episode run uncensored. Every time they said shit, aired clearly. The network didn't bleep anything. This was shocking at the time. Cable networks usually censored strong language even though they didn't legally have to. They censored themselves to keep advertisers happy and avoid complaints. But Comedy Central made a business decision. The controversy would bring viewers. People would watch just to hear uncensored swearing. The ratings would be huge. So they let it air exactly as the creators wanted. The ratings were huge. It Hits the Fan became one of South Park's most watched episodes. Millions of people watched to see how many times the show would say shit. The on-screen counter made it an event. People had viewing parties. They cheered when the counter hit certain numbers. The episode became a cultural moment. News outlets covered it. Parent groups held press conferences condemning it. The controversy got massive publicity. Comedy Central got exactly what they wanted. But the FCC couldn't do anything to them. The FCC regulates regular TV. Networks like ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox have to follow strict language rules. If they break those rules, they get fined. But cable networks like Comedy Central aren't under FCC control. Cable is a subscription service. You choose to pay for it. So the FCC has no power over cable content. Comedy Central could air whatever language they wanted without legal problems. This difference was important. It meant South Park could push limits that regular TV shows couldn't. However, advertisers had power where the FCC didn't. Big companies didn't want their ads running during episodes with extreme swearing. They worried about their brand being connected to it. If their product showed up next to 162 uses of shit, customers might think badly of them. Some advertisers pulled out of South Park after It Hits the Fan aired. They told Comedy Central they wouldn't buy ads during the show anymore. This hurt the network financially. Ad money is how cable networks make money. Losing advertisers meant losing money. Comedy Central had to decide if the controversy was worth losing money. The network made changes when they showed it again. When It Hits the Fan went into reruns, Comedy Central censored it. They bleeped most of the curse words, they left some uncensored but took out most. The on-screen counter stayed, but now it was counting bleeps instead of actual swearing. This made the episode less impactful. The whole point was hearing the word over and over. Bleeping it ruined the joke. But the network needed advertisers back, so they changed the episode to make advertisers happier. Reruns were even worse. When other networks bought the rights to air South Park reruns, they wanted heavy edits. Basic cable channels that showed the show during the day or early evening had strict rules. They couldn't show swearing at all. It Hits the Fan got edited so much it barely made sense. Almost every time they said shit got bleeped. The counter became pointless. You just saw characters moving their mouths while bleeps played. Some rerun packages took the episode out completely. It was easier to skip it than edit it to follow the rules. Other countries handled the episode differently. Some countries showed it uncensored. They had looser language rules than America. European networks showed it in full. They didn't think shit was that bad. Other countries banned it completely. More conservative areas didn't want any swearing on TV no matter what. Whether you could watch the episode varied a lot depending on local TV rules. Looking at It Hits the Fan now, it's available on streaming, but often edited. Some services have the uncensored version, others use the version with lots of bleeps. The choice seems random. HBO Max has the uncensored version because HBO has always allowed swearing. Other platforms use censored versions to keep their ratings right for more people. The original version exists, but it's not the main one on most platforms. The episode became important for a different reason over time. It showed language censorship is more flexible than content censorship. Networks will fight religious groups and special interest groups, but they'll give in to advertisers right away. Money matters more than values. Comedy Central let the episode air once uncensored because controversy brought viewers and attention. Then they censored it for reruns because advertisers wanted them to. The network made both decisions based on money, not values. It Hits the Fan also proved breaking language rules doesn't change them forever. The episode said shit 162 times. It made the word normal for 30 minutes. But after, nothing changed. Networks went back to bleeping swearing. Rules stayed the same. The episode was a one-time thing, not a revolution. South Park thought they were pushing limits. They were just getting a short exception. The limits went back immediately after. Moving on to Best Friends Forever. Section 10. Best Friends Forever. Best Friends Forever came out in March 2005 in Season 9. The episode was about the Terry Schiavo case, a real-world controversy about end-of-life care. Schiavo was a woman in a vegetative state. Her husband wanted to remove her feeding tube. Her parents wanted to keep her alive. The case went to court and became a national argument about the right to die. South Park jumped into this controversy while it was happening. The episode was like the real case, but used Kenny as the patient. Kenny died and ended up in a vegetative state. Cartman wanted to keep him alive for selfish reasons. The episode took a side on a sensitive, ongoing legal battle. This upset people on both sides. Some thought South Park was making light of a tragedy.
Others liked the commentary.
The episode won an Emmy. But it also got limited in reruns. Networks didn't want to show it while the real Shivo case was still in the news. It showed how current events can make episodes temporarily too sensitive to show. The episode started with Kenny getting a new PSP handheld game system. He was obsessed with it. He played it all the time. He walked down the street while playing and didn't watch where he was going. He got hit by a truck. The crash killed him. Kenny died like he always did. But this time, something different happened. Kenny went to heaven. God met him and said Kenny was picked for something special. Heaven was at war with hell. God needed a commander to lead his army. Kenny was that commander. But Kenny had to sign a paper accepting the job. The paper was the PSP user agreement Kenny signed without reading. By agreeing to the terms, Kenny unknowingly joined Heaven's army. Meanwhile on Earth, Kenny's body was in the hospital. He was brain dead, but on life support. The doctors said he was in a permanent vegetative state. He would never wake up. Cartman showed up at the hospital with the PSP. He wanted Kenny's game system since Kenny couldn't use it anymore, but the doctors wouldn't let him have it. They said Kenny was technically still alive. His stuff couldn't be taken until he was officially dead. Cartman got mad. He needed Kenny to die so he could get the PSP. He started trying to get Kenny off life support. Kyle and Stan disagreed with Cartman. They thought taking Kenny off life support was wrong. They wanted to keep Kenny alive as long as possible. They thought Kenny might get better somehow. The two groups fought over Kenny's feeding tube. Cartman said Kenny was already dead. Keeping him on machines was pointless. Kyle and Stan said life is sacred. You can't kill someone just because it's convenient. The argument was exactly like the real Terry Schiavo case. South Park was copying the actual arguments both sides were making in the news and in court. The episode brought in religious people and politicians. A character like President Bush got involved. He was on the side of keeping Kenny alive. He said the government should protect life no matter what. Religious leaders protested outside the hospital. They prayed for Kenny. They held signs saying, "Let Kenny live." The controversy became national news in the episode. Everyone had an opinion. The country split into groups. It was a perfect copy of what was happening in real life with the Schiavo case. In heaven, they needed Kenny urgently. The war with hell was at a critical moment. God's army couldn't fight without their commander. But Kenny was stuck in limbo. He'd signed the agreement, but he wasn't actually in heaven. He was trapped in his vegetative body on Earth. Satan used this trick to get an advantage. Hell's army started winning. Heaven was losing. God needed Kenny to die so he could be the commander. But the life support machines kept Kenny's body alive. The episode solved both problems at once. Cartman won the legal fight. The court said to remove Kenny's feeding tube. Kenny died on Earth. His soul went to heaven. He became the commander and led God's army to win. Heaven won the war. Satan lost. Kenny was a hero in the afterlife. But on Earth, he was just a dead kid who got taken off life support. Cartman got the PSP. Kyle and Stan were devastated. The ending was bittersweet and uncomfortable. When Best Friends Forever aired on March 30th, 2005, the real Terry Schiavo was still alive. She died the next day, on March 31st. South Park aired an episode about her situation literally hours before she died. The timing was shocking. The creators wrote and made the episode while the case was happening. They rushed it to air while it was still relevant. They did it. But it meant the episode came out at the most sensitive time possible. People were emotionally raw. The case was all over the news for weeks. Families were fighting over it. Politicians were using it for politics. And South Park made a cartoon comedy about it. The reaction was intense. Some people praised the episode. They thought South Park handled it well. The show took a clear side. They said removing life support was the kind choice. Keeping someone alive in a vegetative state forever was cruel. The episode made that point through comedy, but the message was serious. People who supported the right to die liked that South Park took their side. Other people were furious. They thought making fun of the Schiavo case was disrespectful. A woman had just died. Her family was sad. South Park turned their tragedy into entertainment. Religious groups condemned the episode. They said it promoted euthanasia and disrespected how sacred life is. Comedy Central got pressure to stop showing the episode in reruns. The network defended it at first. They said it was satire, protected by free speech. They said South Park always talked about current events. This was no different. But advertisers got nervous. They didn't want to be connected to the controversy. Some companies pulled their ads. The network started thinking again. They didn't ban the episode, but they waited to put it back in reruns. Usually an episode would rerun in weeks. Best Friends Forever didn't rerun for months. The network waited for the controversy to calm down. When the episode came back to reruns, it showed late at night. Comedy Central hid it in the schedule. They didn't advertise it, they didn't put it in South Park marathons. The episode was there, but hidden. This quiet censorship kept it from being widely seen without officially banning it. The network could say they weren't censoring, but really they were hiding the episode through when they showed it. Streaming platforms handled it normally. By the time South Park went to streaming, the Shivo case was old news. The immediate sensitivity was gone. Services like HBO Max and Paramount Plus had Best Friends Forever without limits. New viewers could watch it without knowing the real-life story. The episode became just another South Park episode. But for people who lived through the Shivo case, it was still controversial. The episode won an Emmy for Best Animated Show. The TV people recognized it as good satire. This proved the creators' approach worked. They dealt with a sensitive topic at a sensitive time and made it work as art. The Emmy proved controversial stuff can be praised. But the award also made the first censorship look worse. Networks hid an Emmy-winning episode because they were scared of backlash. Looking at Best Friends Forever now, it's like a time capsule. The episode captured a specific moment in American culture. The Terry Schiavo case was huge back then, but younger viewers might not remember it. The episode still works as comedy, but knowing the background makes it better. South Park was brave enough to talk about a current tragedy while it was happening. Most shows would wait until it was safe. South Park didn't wait. They rushed the episode to air while people cared. Being so quick made the episode powerful. It also made it risky. Networks learned they could delay reruns to avoid current controversies. This quiet censorship became a way to handle sensitive content without total bans. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Next up is the Death Camp of Tolerance. Section 11, the Death Camp of Tolerance. The Death Camp of Tolerance came out in November 2002 in Season 6. This episode dealt with political correctness and tolerance in ways that made people uncomfortable. The story was about Mr. Garrison trying to get fired for being gay. He wanted to sue the school for discrimination. So he acted really inappropriate in class. He brought his partner Mr. Slave and did explicit things in front of the students. The school wouldn't fire him because they were scared of looking intolerant. The episode used Nazi stuff and Holocaust references to make its point about tolerance going too far. This upset Jewish groups and LGBTQ groups. The episode said tolerance shouldn't mean accepting actually harmful behavior. But how it made that point used shock humor that crossed lines for many viewers. Networks edited the episode a lot for reruns. Some other countries banned it. And it became an example of how satire about being sensitive can be too insensitive to air unchanged. The episode started with the school announcing a new rule. They were committed to tolerance and diversity. They wanted to make sure all teachers felt accepted, no matter who they were. Mr. Garrison heard this and saw a chance. He was mad at the school for different reasons. He wanted to get fired so he could sue for wrongful termination, but he knew the school wouldn't fire him for being gay. That would be discrimination. So he decided to act so inappropriately they'd have to fire him. Then he could say it was because he was gay. Mr. Garrison brought Mr. Slave to class. Mr. Slave was his partner. Garrison introduced him to the students as his teaching assistant. Then Garrison started doing things that were clearly wrong for a classroom. He made sexual comments. He did stuff no teacher should do in front of kids. The students were uncomfortable. They told their parents. The parents complained to the school. They said Garrison was acting inappropriately. They wanted him fired. But Principal Victoria said no. She said firing Garrison would make the school look intolerant. She said the parents were homophobic. She said they only wanted Garrison fired because he was gay. The parents said it wasn't about Garrison being gay. It was about what he was doing. Anyone doing those things in a classroom should be fired no matter their sexual orientation. But the school wouldn't listen. They were so scared of looking intolerant, they couldn't see actual bad behavior. The episode was making the point, tolerance has limits. You can accept who someone is while still holding them responsible for what they do. But the school mixed up the two. They thought any criticism of Garrison was bigotry. Stan, Kyle, and Cartman wouldn't go to Garrison's class. They told their parents what Garrison was doing. Their parents supported them. They said the boys didn't have to be somewhere that made them uncomfortable. The boys stayed home from school. But the school said this wasn't okay. If the boys didn't go to class, they'd be kicked out. The parents made their case. The school brought in a tolerance counselor. The counselor said the boys needed to learn to accept different lifestyles. The boys tried to explain they didn't care that Garrison was gay. They had a problem with what he was doing, but no one would listen. The school sent the boys to a tolerance camp. This was supposed to teach them to be more accepting. The camp was called the Museum of Tolerance, but when they got there, it was actually like a concentration camp. The camp was run like a Nazi death camp. Guards treated the boys like prisoners. They had to do hard work. They were starved and abused. The episode was comparing forced tolerance teaching to Nazi brainwashing. It was saying forcing acceptance through punishment is itself intolerance. The imagery was extreme. South Park showed the boys in striped uniforms. They showed guard towers and barbed wire. They used Holocaust imagery to make a point about political correctness. Other kids were at the camp for similar reasons. They'd all questioned someone's behavior and been called intolerant. The camp's goal was to break them until they accepted everything without criticism. The boys tried to survive. They realized the camp wouldn't let them go until they said what the guards wanted. So they pretended to learn. They told the counselors they got it now. They said they were wrong to criticize anyone for any reason. The counselors believed them and let them go. The boys went back to school. Mr. Garrison was still acting inappropriately, but now the boys stayed quiet. They learned speaking up got them punished. The episode ended with the message that forced tolerance creates silence, not acceptance. People don't actually change their minds. They just stop saying what they think. This was South Park's point. Real tolerance comes from understanding, not force. Punishing people for being uncomfortable doesn't make them more accepting. It makes them scared to speak honestly. When it aired on November 20th, 2002, reactions were split. Some viewers liked the point about political correctness going too far. They agreed tolerance shouldn't mean accepting bad behavior. They thought the episode made a good point about the difference between accepting who someone is and excusing what they do. But other viewers were horrified by the Holocaust imagery. Using concentration camp pictures to make a point about tolerance education seemed really inappropriate. Jewish groups criticized the episode. They said making the Holocaust trivial for a comedy bit was offensive and insensitive. LGBTQ groups were also upset, but for different reasons. They felt the episode showed gay men as predatory and inappropriate. What Mr. Garrison did in the classroom made negative stereotypes stronger. The episode seemed to say accepting LGBTQ people meant accepting inappropriate sexual behavior. Mixing these things up was harmful. LGBTQ people had spent decades fighting the idea that gay teachers were dangerous around kids. The episode brought that stereotype back for laughs. Even though South Park's point was about actions versus who someone is, how they did it made gay men look bad. Comedy Central aired the episode as made, but they got complaints right away. The network defended it at first. They said South Park was making fun of both sides. The show made fun of the intolerant school people and the inappropriate teacher. It wasn't taking a side against LGBTQ people. But the complaints kept coming. Advertisers said they were worried. The network started thinking about editing it for the future. When the episode went into reruns, Comedy Central made changes. They cut some of the more explicit classroom scenes. They made the concentration camp parts shorter. The edits tried to make it less offensive without totally removing what the episode was saying, but the cuts made the episode make less sense. You could tell scenes were missing, the timing felt off. Rerun packages got even more edits. Basic cable networks that showed daytime South Park reruns couldn't show most of it. They either skipped it or showed a version so edited it barely made sense. Other countries had mixed reactions. European networks mostly showed it without problems. They were less sensitive about Holocaust imagery and satire. But some countries banned it. Germany wouldn't show it because of their strict laws about Nazi stuff. Even in satire, showing concentration camps was illegal. Other countries with lots of Jewish people also limited it. Whether you could watch the episode varied a lot by area. Streaming platforms eventually had the episode, but often with warnings. HBO Max added a warning before it played. The warning explained the episode had stuff some viewers might find offensive. It said the Holocaust references were satire. This let the platform keep the episode while saying its content was sensitive. Other streaming services did similar things. Looking at the death camp of tolerance now, it's still controversial. The episode made a real point about the limits of tolerance. You can accept who people are while still holding them responsible for what they do. Tolerance doesn't mean accepting everything without criticism. But South Park made that point using shock humor many people found offensive. The Holocaust imagery was too much for some viewers. How they showed Mr. Garrison made negative stereotypes about gay men stronger. The episode tried to make fun of both sides, but ended up offending multiple groups. The censorship was gentler than total bans. Networks edited it, but kept it available. This showed the episode was complicated. It wasn't hateful enough for a total ban, but it was offensive enough to need edits. What happened was a changed version showed in most places. The full unedited episode is on DVD and some streaming platforms, but regular viewers watching reruns saw the edited version. This partial censorship became common for controversial South Park episodes. Networks wanted to keep showing the show, but needed to make it less offensive, so they cut scenes and made parts shorter. The episode survived, but changed. Moving on, we have the China problem. Section 12, the China problem. The China problem came out in October 2008 in Season 12. This episode put together two controversial topics. It was about Chinese politics and sexual violence in a specific movie. The episode showed Cartman upset about how China treated America. He thought China was taking over the world. He compared it to the Red Dawn movie, where communists invade America. Meanwhile, the episode made fun of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. The boys were traumatized by watching the movie. They kept saying the movie raped Indiana Jones. They used rape as a way to describe how the movie destroyed the franchise. This upset sexual assault survivors and support groups. They said using rape as a casual comparison makes real trauma seem less important. With the China stuff too, the episode got restricted in multiple places. Some countries edited it, others banned it completely. And streaming platforms in certain areas don't have it even today. The episode started with the boys watching Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in theaters. They were excited. They loved Indiana Jones. But the movie was terrible. It had ridiculous plot and bad special effects. The boys left the theater devastated. They felt like the movie destroyed something they loved. Stan said it felt like they'd been violated. Cartman agreed. They started using rape as a way to describe it. They said George Lucas and Steven Spielberg raped Indiana Jones. The episode showed this literally. Lucas and Spielberg showed up as characters attacking Indiana Jones. What they showed was explicit and disturbing. South Park was using shocking images to show how fans felt about bad sequels ruining franchises. The rape comparison kept going through the episode. The boys talked about it all the time. They went to support groups for people traumatized by bad movies. They met other fans who watched their favorite franchises get destroyed by terrible sequels. Everyone described it as being raped. The episode was making fun of how fans use extreme language when they're disappointed. People say stuff like, "That movie killed my childhood," or "They destroyed my favorite character." South Park took that language literally. They showed George Lucas and Steven Spielberg physically attacking characters. It was supposed to be ridiculous and shocking. Meanwhile, Cartman dealt with his China fears. He watched the Beijing Olympics. He saw China's power and influence growing. He got paranoid China would invade America. He started preparing for when China took over. He learned basic Chinese phrases. He studied Chinese culture. He wanted to be useful to the invaders so they wouldn't kill him. The other boys thought he was being ridiculous. Kyle explained China wasn't going to invade. They were a business partner. Cartman didn't believe it. He saw Chinese influence everywhere. He thought it was only a matter of time before they took over. Cartman's fears got worse. He started having nightmares about Chinese soldiers walking through South Park. He imagined his town taken over by a foreign country. He compared it to Red Dawn, a 1980s movie about Soviet invasion. In his mind, China was the new Soviet Union. They were communists planning to destroy American freedom. This fear made him do extreme stuff. He tried to organize resistance. He wanted to make a militia. He tried to get other kids to prepare for war. Nobody took him seriously. The two stories came together at the end. The boys realized worrying about China and bad movies were both examples of anger in the wrong place. They were focusing on things they couldn't control. China wasn't going to invade. Bad movies weren't actual violence. They needed perspective. The episode tried to end with a message about not making disappointments into catastrophes, but the damage was done. The rape imagery took over the episode. The message got lost in the controversy. When it aired on October 8, 2008, reactions focused on the rape stuff. Sexual assault groups condemned the episode right away. They said using rape as a comparison for bad movies was really offensive. Rape is a serious crime that causes real trauma. Comparing it to watching a disappointing sequel makes that trauma seem less important. The groups asked Comedy Central to apologize and pull the episode. They organized campaigns asking advertisers to stop supporting South Park. Some viewers defended the episode. They said South Park was making fun of how fans overreact to bad movies. The extreme imagery was supposed to show how ridiculous the language was. By making "they raped my childhood" literal, South Park was showing how wrong that phrase is. The satire was pointing out fans shouldn't use rape comparisons casually. But critics said it didn't work. Even if they meant to criticize bad language, showing explicit rape imagery made things worse. The satire needed traumatizing content to make its point. That wasn't worth it. Comedy Central defended the episode at first. They said it was satire like South Park normally does. The show always pushed limits. This was no different. But pressure built up. Advertisers started pulling out. The network thought again. They didn't ban the episode, but they made changes. Future showings got edited. The most explicit stuff got removed. Talk about rape got shortened. The edits made the episode less offensive, but also made less sense. The comparison didn't work as well when you couldn't see what they were describing. Other countries had different problems. The China stuff created problems in Asian markets. Some countries didn't want to show episodes that showed China badly. Even though the episode was making fun of American fear of China, networks worried about political problems. They edited the China scenes or took the episode out completely. This happened in several Asian countries. The episode became unavailable not because of the rape stuff, but because of political sensitivity. China banned all of South Park years later. But the China problem helped make that happen. The Chinese government keeps track of how their country is shown in foreign media. Episodes that make fun of China or show it as threatening get noticed. When South Park later made Banned in China, all the episodes together led to a total ban. The China problem was part of that. Streaming platforms handle the episode all over the place. In Western places, it's usually available with warnings. HBO Max has it, but adds a warning about sensitive content. Other platforms do similar stuff. But in Asian places and areas with lots of Chinese people, the episode often gets taken out of streaming. The mix of rape stuff and China content made it too problematic for worldwide distribution. Networks decided it was easier to leave it out. Support groups used the China problem as an example when talking about harmful media. They used it when saying rape jokes and comparisons make sexual violence seem normal. The episode became something used to teach what not to do. Media classes showed clips to talk about why using rape casually is harmful. South Park probably didn't mean to become an example of bad satire, but that's what happened. Looking at the China problem now, it shows how multiple controversies can pile up. The rape stuff alone would have caused problems. The China stuff alone would have caused different problems. Together, they made the episode problematic in multiple ways for different people. This limited where it could show and how it could be shown. The episode exists, but with limits. You can find it on some platforms in some areas with some edits. But there's no one version everyone can watch. The censorship is split up across different places for different reasons. That makes it a complicated example of how worldwide distribution affects content. What's okay in one country becomes banned in another. The China problem got caught in that divide. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Up next is Pinewood Derby. Section 13, Pinewood Derby. Pinewood Derby aired in March 2009 during Season 13. This episode was about cheating and world politics in unexpected ways. The story started with Stan building a Pinewood Derby car for a school competition. Randy helped him, but decided to cheat by using alien technology. The car went so fast, actual aliens noticed it. Then the episode turned into a story about space travel and politics between planets. Earth's leaders lied to alien civilizations about how advanced humans were. They stole from aliens and blamed each other. The episode made several countries look bad, including Finland and Mexico. But the biggest issue was how it portrayed Middle Eastern countries. The episode showed leaders from that region as dishonest and manipulative. This got it banned in multiple countries. The UK edited it. Middle Eastern markets pulled it completely. And the episode showed how different places censored different stuff based on local politics. The episode began simply enough. South Park Elementary was having a Pinewood Derby competition. Kids had to build small wooden cars and race them down a track. Stan wanted to win. He asked Randy to help him build the car. Randy said yes, but he wasn't good at building things. He tried to follow the directions, but his car kept falling apart. Other dads were building amazing cars for their kids. Randy felt like a failure. He didn't want Stan to lose because of him, so he decided to cheat. Randy worked at the South Park lab. He could use special equipment. He snuck in after hours and used particle accelerators and advanced tech. He built a super-powered engine for Stan's car. The engine was way more than anything that should be in a kid's toy. It used ideas from theoretical physics. Randy didn't really understand what he was doing. He just wanted Stan to win. He put the engine in the car and told Stan it was ready. Stan trusted his dad. He didn't know about the cheating. The race happened. All the kids lined up their cars. The race started. Stan's car didn't just win. It broke the sound barrier. It went so fast it literally flew off the track and kept going. The car shot up into the sky. It left Earth's atmosphere. It went into space. The whole town watched in shock. They'd never seen anything like it. Stan's car became a spacecraft. Randy realized he went too far, but it was too late. The car was gone. Then aliens showed up. Multiple alien groups detected Stan's car. They tracked the technology signal. They came to Earth to look into it. Alien representatives showed up and met with world leaders. They explained Earth just showed it could do faster than light travel. This was supposed to be impossible for humans at their level. The aliens were part of a space community. They had rules. New species could only join after reaching certain tech levels, honestly. Earth apparently cheated somehow. The aliens wanted to know how humans made this tech so fast. World leaders panicked. They realized Randy's cheat exposed Earth to alien attention. If the aliens found out humans didn't actually have advanced tech, there would be consequences. So the leaders made up a story. They said humans made the engine through real research. They pretended Earth was more advanced than it really was. The aliens believed them. They let Earth into their space group. But they also set up trade relationships. They started sending stuff to Earth. Valuable materials and tech arrived from space. Earth's leaders saw a chance to get rich. But the alien trade deals needed honesty. If anyone lied or cheated, there were harsh punishments. Earth's leaders decided to cheat anyway. They started stealing from the aliens. They took stuff without paying. They blamed the stealing on each other. The episode showed different world leaders lying and pointing fingers. The president of Mexico stole. The prime minister of Finland stole. Leaders from Middle Eastern countries stole. Everyone was corrupt. The episode showed world politics as a con game where every country tried to screw over everyone else. The alien group found out. They looked into the stealing. They realized Earth's leaders were all lying. The aliens decided humans weren't ready for the space community. They cut off all contact. They took back everything they gave. They erased Earth from their records. Earth was banned from space travel and alien contact forever. Humans blew their chance because leaders couldn't stop cheating and lying. The episode ended with Earth alone and isolated. All because Randy cheated at a kid's race. When it aired on March 25th, 2009, most viewers focused on how absurd the story was. It was a typical South Park thing where stuff gets out of hand. A small cheat at a school event led to space consequences. But other countries' networks noticed the political stuff. The episode showed leaders from specific countries as thieves and liars. This created political sensitivity. Some countries didn't want to show episodes that made their leaders look bad, even as satire. The UK edited the episode before showing it. British networks cut or changed scenes showing certain world leaders. They were careful about which countries got made fun of. The edits tried to make the satire more general and less specific. But this made the episode confusing. You could tell scenes were missing. The timing felt off. British viewers who later saw the unedited version online realized how much got changed. Middle Eastern places had bigger problems. The episode showed leaders from that area as really corrupt. They were shown as the worst ones in the stealing plan. Networks in Middle Eastern countries decided not to show the episode at all. They didn't want to show their governments getting made fun of. Even though it was comedy, it crossed lines about respecting leaders. The episode got pulled from TV schedules completely. Viewers in those areas never saw it on TV. Other countries did the same thing. Mexico wasn't happy about being in the corruption story. Finnish networks questioned why their country was specifically named. The episode tried to show all countries were equally corrupt, but by naming specific countries, it made individual controversies. Each country had to decide if they'd show it. Many said no. The censorship was different from religious bans or content limits. This was political censorship. Governments and networks didn't want to show stuff that made specific countries look bad. Even in satire, there are limits to what you can say about current political leaders in some places. South Park crossed those limits. The episode was available in the US without problems. American networks don't worry about offending foreign governments, but showing it in other countries needed either edits or total removal. Streaming platforms had similar problems. When South Park went to worldwide streaming, Pinewood Derby became an issue in different regions. The episode was available in North America. It was available in most of Europe with some edits, but it was blocked in Middle Eastern places. It was limited in several other areas. The streaming services used location tracking to control what showed in different countries. Viewers in blocked areas couldn't watch the episode even if they paid for the service. This made a broken-up viewing experience. South Park fans in different countries could watch different episodes. Someone in the US could watch the full series. Someone in Saudi Arabia had episodes missing. The gaps weren't explained. The episodes just weren't there. International fans had to use VPNs or piracy to see the full series. Legal ways to watch were incomplete. Looking at Pinewood Derby now, it shows how political stuff gets censored differently than religious or offensive stuff. Networks will fight to keep shock humor and crude jokes. They'll defend artistic freedom, but they'll quietly remove episodes that create political problems. Political censorship happens behind the scenes. No press releases or public arguments. The episodes just disappear from certain places. Pinewood Derby still exists and airs in the US, but it's basically banned in multiple countries, and most viewers don't even know it's missing. That makes it work better as censorship than public bans. If no one realizes something got removed, no one complains about it. Moving on to Banned in China. Section 14, Banned in China. Banned in China came out in October 2019 in season 23. This episode directly criticized China's government and censorship. The story showed Randy trying to sell weed in China. Meanwhile, Stan started a death metal band that got popular in America. A Chinese company wanted to sell the band's music in China, but they wanted changes to make it okay for Chinese censorship. The episode showed how entertainment companies censor themselves to get into the Chinese market. It talked about Winnie the Pooh, Tiananmen Square, and Chinese labor camps. It showed Disney and other companies giving up their values for money. China's government was furious. They banned all of South Park from Chinese internet. Every episode got taken off streaming. The show disappeared from Chinese social media. Matt Stone and Trey Parker made a sarcastic apology that made things worse. The ban is still going today. Banned in China is the ultimate example of one episode causing total censorship. The episode started with Randy going to China. He wanted to expand Tegrity Farms into China. China had millions of potential customers. Randy thought he could get rich selling weed there. But he didn't understand Chinese laws or culture. He showed up unprepared. Chinese officials arrested him right away. They put him in a work camp. Randy was forced to work making stuff for American companies. He put together toys and electronics. He saw terrible conditions. The workers were treated like slaves. The episode was showing the reality of Chinese work camps that make stuff for Western stores. Meanwhile, in South Park, Stan started a death metal band with the boys. They called it Crimson Dawn. They played aggressive music with dark lyrics. The band got popular locally. They posted videos online. Their music spread beyond Colorado. A record company noticed them. The company wanted to sign Crimson Dawn. They saw the band could go mainstream. But there was a catch. The company wanted to sell the music in China. China was a huge market. Bands that made it there made huge money. But Chinese censorship was strict. the band would need to change their lyrics and look. The record company explained the rules. No talking about death or violence. No dark imagery. No political stuff. Everything had to be approved by Chinese censors. Stan fought it at first. He didn't want to compromise his art, but the money was tempting. The company showed him how much he could make. Other band members wanted the deal. They pressured Stan to say yes. Eventually, he gave in. Crimson Dawn started changing their music to fit what China wanted. The episode went back and forth between Randy in the work camp and Stan dealing with censorship. The connection was clear. Both were being controlled by Chinese government rules. Randy was literally in prison. Stan was artistically in prison. Both showed how China has power over foreign people and companies. The episode wasn't subtle. It directly criticized China's human rights violations and censorship. Then the episode brought in other entertainment companies. It showed Disney executives talking about the Chinese market. They talked about removing stuff that might offend Chinese censors. They mentioned how Disney censored other movies to get into China. The episode showed NBA executives doing the same thing. After a real situation where an NBA manager tweeted support for Hong Kong protesters, the league apologized to China. South Park was calling out how American companies give in to Chinese pressure for money. The episode used specific examples China banned. It showed Winnie the Pooh, which is banned in China because people compare him to President Xi Jinping. It talked about Tiananmen Square, which is heavily censored in Chinese media and internet. It showed conditions in work camps China says don't exist. Everything was designed to break Chinese censorship rules. The creators knew this would cause problems. They did it anyway. Randy eventually escaped the work camp. He got home and realized China wasn't worth it. Stan quit the record deal. Crimson Dawn went back to playing uncensored music for smaller crowds. The episode's message was artistic honesty and freedom matter more than Chinese money. American companies should stop censoring themselves to please a foreign dictatorship. The episode ended with Stan rejecting the whole compromise. He'd rather be poor and free than rich and controlled. When it aired on October 2nd, 2019, China reacted right away. The episode was a direct attack on the Chinese government. It broke every censorship rule China had. Officials acted fast. Within days, every South Park episode disappeared from Chinese streaming. The whole show got banned. All old seasons got removed. Social media posts about South Park got deleted. You couldn't search the show's name on Chinese internet. It was a total blackout. Matt Stone and Trey Parker responded with a sarcastic apology. They posted a statement saying they were sorry for upsetting the Chinese government. But the apology was clearly making fun. They talked about specific times American companies really apologized to China. They said stuff like, "We too love money more than freedom and democracy." The statement was full of sarcasm. It made clear South Park wasn't really apologizing or changing. The fake apology made things worse. Chinese officials were insulted. They made the ban bigger. Not only was South Park blocked in China, but talking about the show became more restricted. People who posted about it online faced consequences. The government wanted South Park completely erased from Chinese internet, and they mostly did it. The show became impossible for Chinese people to watch. Western media covered the ban a lot. News places praised South Park for standing up to China. They compared the show's response with how other companies apologized and censored themselves. Disney, the NBA, and different Hollywood studios had all given in to get into Chinese markets. South Park refused. The ban proved the episode's message was right. China did censor foreign stuff, and American companies did give in to that censorship. The ban had money consequences for Comedy Central and Viacom. They lost the whole Chinese market for South Park. That market was millions of potential viewers and a lot of money. But the network supported the creators. They didn't force an apology or remove the episode. This was different from how Comedy Central handled Muhammad episodes. With Muhammad, the network censored and limited content. With China, they stood strong. The difference was, threats from Islamic extremists felt more immediate and dangerous than money pressure from China. Other streaming platforms had to make choices. Services working in China took South Park off their lists. Services working internationally kept it. This made a clear divide. You could watch South Park in free countries, you couldn't in China. The ban became a sign of freedom. Having access to South Park meant living somewhere with free speech. The episode also changed how other shows handled China. After seeing the total ban from banned in China, Other creators were more careful. They avoided directly criticizing the Chinese government. The chilling effect was real. South Park had the money, stability, and independence to survive a Chinese ban. Smaller shows didn't. They couldn't risk losing the Chinese market, so they censored themselves. The episode's warning about entertainment companies giving in for Chinese money was proven right by how the industry reacted to the ban. Looking at Banned in China now, it's the most complete censorship South Park has ever faced. Individual episodes got banned in certain countries, but this was the whole show getting erased from a major market. Over 1.4 billion people lost access to South Park because of one episode. The ban is still going years later. Nothing has changed. China hasn't lifted it. South Park hasn't really apologized. The standoff continues. The episode became a symbol of fighting Chinese censorship. Fans wear Banned in China stuff. The episode gets talked about in discussions about companies censoring themselves. It proved standing up to China is possible, but has consequences. Most companies won't take that risk. South Park did, and paid the price with a total ban. But they also got respect for refusing to give in. The ban proved everything the episode said about Chinese censorship. It was the most honest proof the creators could have gotten. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Next up is Mr. Hanky's complete removal. Section 15. Mr. Hanky's complete removal. Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh was a character in South Park for over 20 years. He first showed up in Season 1. He was a talking piece of poop who brought Christmas joy to the town. The character was gross, but fans loved him. He became a regular part of South Park's Christmas episodes. But in 2018, everything changed. The episode The Problem with a Pooh showed Mr. Hanky getting canceled for offensive tweets. The town kicked him out. He moved away. The episode was supposed to talk about cancel culture, but it became Mr. Hanky's actual goodbye. The character hasn't showed up since, and some streaming services took his episodes out completely. This wasn't just about censoring one episode. This was about erasing a character from the show's history. It showed how culture changing can get rid of characters that don't fit anymore. Mr. Hanky was made as South Park's alternative to traditional Christmas characters. Kyle couldn't celebrate Christmas because he was Jewish. He felt left out during the holidays. So he invented Mr. Hanky, a talking poop who sang songs and spread holiday cheer. The character was on purpose crude. That was the joke. Christmas specials were usually wholesome and family-friendly. South Park made their Christmas mascot literally a piece of shit. It was offensive on purpose, but it was also weirdly heartwarming. Mr. Hanky represented being included. He was there for kids who didn't fit into traditional holidays. The character showed up in multiple episodes over the years. He had his own Christmas special, he showed up in holiday episodes regularly, he got a family, he had a wife and kids who were also talking poop. The show built stories around him. He lived in the sewers under South Park. He only came out at Christmas. Kids loved him, but adults thought he was disgusting. This created comedy. Mr. Hanky was childlike wonder versus adult cynicism. The character became iconic. Fans bought Mr. Hanky stuff. He was one of South Park's most well-known original characters. But as culture changed, Mr. Hanky became problematic. The character's whole thing was based on gross humor. He was literally poop. That idea didn't age well. What was edgy and funny in 1997 felt childish and offensive by 2018. The show changed. South Park was doing more political and social commentary. They were dealing with serious stuff. Mr. Hanky felt like something from the show's cruder early days. The creators started backing away from him. He showed up less. His episodes didn't rerun as much. The character was quietly going away. Then came Season 22, Episode 9, called The Problem with a Pooh. This episode directly talked about where Mr. Hanky fit in modern South Park. The story showed Mr. Hanky getting a Twitter account. He started posting offensive stuff, racist jokes, sexist comments, inflammatory political stuff. The tweets got worse and worse. People in South Park were horrified. They'd loved Mr. Hanky as a Christmas character, but now he was embarrassing them. The town had a meeting. They argued about what to do. Some wanted to forgive him. They said he was going through something and needed help. Others wanted him gone. They said his tweets crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed. The episode was clearly about cancel culture. It showed how public figures get destroyed for controversial statements. It looked at whether people deserve second chances, or if some things are unforgivable. Mr. Hanky was like celebrities who got canceled for offensive behavior. The town's argument was like real-world arguments about being held responsible versus getting forgiveness. But the episode also felt personal. The creators seemed to be struggling with what to do with a character they'd outgrown. Mr. Hanky didn't fit South Park anymore. The episode was how they got rid of him. The town decided Mr. Hanky had to go. They couldn't have him being their Christmas character anymore. He was too toxic. They had a ceremony where they said goodbye. Mr. Hanky was hurt and mad. He felt abandoned by people who loved him for years. But he left. He moved to Springfield, the town from The Simpsons. The ending was sad and final. Mr. Hanky rode away on a train. The townspeople watched him go. They felt guilty, but also relieved. The character was gone. The episode ended with South Park having to figure out Christmas without him. When it aired on December 5th, 2018, fans right away knew it was Mr. Hanky's goodbye. The episode wasn't subtle. It was clearly taking the character off the show forever. Some fans were sad. They grew up with Mr. Hanky. He was part of South Park. Losing him felt like losing a piece of the show's history. Other fans thought it was the right choice. The character was outdated. He was humor that didn't work anymore. The show was better off moving on. But then, something unexpected happened. Some streaming services started taking Mr. Hanky episodes off their lists. Not just the problem with Apu. Earlier episodes with the character also disappeared. The original Mr. Hanky's Christmas Classics special got pulled from certain platforms. Episodes where he showed up as a side character got edited or removed. This went beyond the character leaving the show. This was erasing him from the past. Services were trying to remove Mr. Hanky from South Park's past. The removals weren't everywhere. Some platforms kept all the episodes. Others removed some, but not all. There was no clear pattern. Different platforms made different choices about how to handle Mr. Hanky stuff. Some thought his episodes were too crude for modern audiences. Others didn't care and kept everything. Fans noticed things not matching up. They complained online about episodes being missing. They wanted access to all South Park episodes. Comedy Central never officially said they were censoring Mr. Hanky. There was no statement about removing episodes. The character just quietly disappeared from certain places. This quiet censorship was harder to fight than total bans. If a network says they're removing something, fans can protest. But when things just disappear without explanation, there's nothing to fight. The episodes were gone, and no one took responsibility for removing them. Things got more complicated over time. When South Park went to HBO Max, fans checked which episodes were there. Most Mr. Hanky episodes were there, but some weren't. The original Christmas special was missing at first. It got added back later after complaints. Other platforms had different gaps. Hulu's South Park list, when they had it, didn't include certain Mr. Hanky episodes. Paramount Plus eventually got the full list, but that took time. What was available kept changing. Looking at Mr. Hanky's removal now, it's a new kind of censorship. This wasn't about religious offense or politics. This was about a character aging badly. The show itself decided he didn't fit anymore. Then, platforms decided his old episodes might offend modern viewers, so they removed or limited them. This made a situation where a character who was popular for 20 years got erased from parts of the show's history. Future viewers on certain platforms won't see Mr. Hanky's episodes. They won't get references to him. The character is being erased not because he was always bad, but because culture changed. This brings up questions about keeping older content. Should shows be able to remove characters and episodes that don't fit current values anymore? Or should everything be available with warnings? Mr. Hanky wasn't hateful or dangerous, he was just crude. But crude humor from the late 90s feels different now. Some platforms decided that difference was enough reason to remove it. Others kept everything and let viewers decide. The lack of being consistent is frustrating for fans. They don't know which platform has which episodes, the complete South Park experience is broken up across different services. The Mr. Hanky situation also shows how censoring yourself works. South Park chose to get rid of the character. Then, platforms chose to hide his old episodes. Neither choice was forced by outside groups. No one boycotted over Mr. Hanky, no religious groups asked for his removal. The censorship came from inside. The creators and distributors decided the character was risky. They removed him ahead of time to avoid possible problems. That's worse than outside censorship. When creators censor themselves and platforms hide old content without being asked, it means the chilling effect is complete. People are expecting offense and removing content before anyone complains. Moving on, we have the streaming platform divide. Section 16, the streaming platform divide. Some South Park episodes only exist on DVD now. They're not available on any streaming. You can't watch them legally without buying DVDs. This makes a divide between streaming viewers and DVD collectors. Streaming is how most people watch TV today. But streaming lists are incomplete. Episodes get removed, content gets censored, platforms make different choices about what to include. The result is the full South Park experience isn't available to everyone. Some episodes are too controversial for streaming, others got caught in rights problems, and some just disappeared without explanation. The streaming platform divide shows how modern ways of showing content create new types of censorship. Content that exists becomes unavailable just because no platform wants to have it. Moving to streaming changed how people get content. For years, South Park showed on Comedy Central. You could watch new episodes on TV, old episodes went into reruns. If you wanted to own them, you bought DVDs. The DVD sets had every episode, uncensored, with commentary. They were the official version of the show. But most people didn't buy DVDs. They just watched whatever showed on TV. Then, streaming happened. Services like Hulu and Netflix started offering whole TV series on demand. South Park eventually got on streaming platforms. Fans could now watch any episode whenever they wanted. But the streaming lists weren't complete. Certain episodes were missing from the start. The Muhammad episodes obviously weren't there. 200 and 201 never made it to streaming. Super Best Friends was gone. These missing ones made sense given the controversies. But then other episodes started disappearing too. Episodes that showed normally for years suddenly weren't on streaming. Fans noticed gaps in season lists. Episodes would jump from number 3 to number 5 with 4 missing. Sometimes whole seasons had multiple missing episodes. The gaps weren't explained. They were just there. Different platforms had different gaps. When South Park was on Hulu, certain episodes were missing. When it went to HBO Max, some of those episodes came back, but others disappeared. Paramount Plus eventually got the streaming rights. Their list was more complete, but still not everything. International platforms had even more limits. Netflix in different countries had heavily censored episode lists. Some areas got less than half the full series. What was available depended totally on where you lived and which service you paid for. The DVD sets were still the only way to get everything. DVDs had episodes streaming took out. The uncensored versions were only on DVD. Commentary that explained controversies was only on DVD. Fans who wanted the complete South Park had to buy old technology. But fewer people had DVD players. Streaming was easier. Most homes got rid of DVDs completely. This made a situation where the complete show was technically available, but actually hard to get for regular viewers. The divide got worse over time. As streaming took over, platforms felt more pressure to pick what content to show. They didn't want controversial episodes causing problems. So they removed stuff ahead of time that might get complaints. This wasn't traditional censorship with public arguments. This was quiet removal based on figuring out risks. Platforms looked at episodes and decided which ones weren't worth possible backlash. Those episodes got taken off the list. No announcements, no explanations, they just stopped being available. Rights problems made more issues. South Park used real songs, news footage, and clips from other shows. When the series showed on TV, these were covered under TV agreements, but streaming needed different licenses. Some rights owners wanted more money for streaming. Others wouldn't allow their content on streaming at all. This meant episodes that needed specific music or footage had to be edited or removed. The show lost content not because of censorship, but because of legal problems. Music was a big issue. South Park episodes often had real songs. These made atmosphere and added to jokes. But music rights for streaming are expensive. Platforms sometimes replaced the original music with generic replacements. This changed how episodes felt. Emotional moments lost impact. Jokes didn't work the same way. Fans who remembered the original shows noticed these changes. They complained about episodes being changed, but there was nothing they could do. The music rights were too expensive or unavailable. The episodes stayed changed. Celebrity appearances made similar problems. South Park often had real people playing themselves or parody versions. Some celebrities later didn't like how they were shown. They threatened to sue if episodes stayed around. Platforms removed these episodes to avoid lawsuits. The legal threats weren't about censorship. They were about being insulted and image rights. But the result was the same. Episodes disappeared from streaming. The platform divide also affected how episodes looked. Streaming services compressed video to save space. This made picture quality worse than DVDs. The compression especially hurt older episodes. Early South Park seasons were made in lower resolution. Streaming compression made them look even worse. DVDs kept better quality. Fans who cared about picture quality had to stick with DVDs. But again, most people didn't have DVD players anymore. They accepted lower quality streaming for easier access. Commentary and special features totally disappeared on streaming. DVDs had creator commentary for every episode. Matt Stone and Trey Parker explained references, talked about controversies, and shared behind-the-scenes stories. This stuff added context and depth. It helped viewers understand controversial episodes better. But streaming platforms didn't have commentary. They only had the episodes. All that extra stuff was lost. Fans who wanted it had to find old DVD. The situation showed a bigger problem with streaming. DVDs gave you permanent ownership. Once you bought a DVD, you owned it forever. The content couldn't be taken away or censored. But streaming was a rental service. You paid for access, not ownership. The platform could change what was available anytime. Episodes could be removed without warning, edits could be made quietly, you had no control. Your subscription only guaranteed access to whatever the platform chose to offer. That could be the full series, or a censored bunch. You wouldn't know until you tried to watch. Looking at the streaming platform divide now, it shows how modern ways of showing content create new censorship chances. In the past, censorship was visible. Networks banned episodes and people noticed. They complained, there were news stories, but now, episodes just disappear into streaming. They're removed quietly. Different platforms have different lists, the show gets broken up. No single legal place has everything. This spreads out responsibility. No one platform is censoring the whole show. They're each just making their own choices about their own list. But together, those choices add up to huge censorship. The divide also shows DVDs being saved matters. DVDs are old technology, but they're the only way to get complete, uncensored versions of shows. As fewer people have DVD players, this content becomes hard to get. Eventually, they'll stop making DVDs. Used copies will become collector's items. At that point, the complete South Park will only exist in private collections and pirated files. The legal complete version will stop existing. This is happening slowly, but for sure. Streaming is the future. But streaming is incomplete. The gap between what exists and what's available keeps getting bigger. Fans have adapted by using different sources. They pay for streaming for easy access to most episodes. They buy DVDs for the missing ones. They use piracy sites to find episodes no platform has. This broken up approach is the only way to see the complete show. It's inconvenient and technically illegal sometimes, but it's what the system created. The streaming platform divide has made pirates and collectors out of fans who would rather just pay for real access. But real access doesn't have everything. So fans do what they have to. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Up next is episodes that only exist in edited form. Section 17. Episodes that only exist in edited form. Some South Park episodes were never totally banned. They still show on TV, they're on streaming, but they're not the original versions. Networks went back years after these episodes first showed and made changes. They took out scenes, they added bleeps, they cut dialogue. The episodes exist, but only changed. The original shows are lost to most viewers. You can find them on old DVDs if you're lucky, or through piracy sites that saved the originals. But legally and easily, you can only watch the edited versions. This is a different kind of censorship. The episodes weren't removed, they were quietly changed. Most viewers don't even know they're watching changed versions. This makes it work better than total bans. If people don't realize something was censored, they won't complain about it. This started in South Park's early seasons. When episodes first showed, Comedy Central had looser rules. The network was new and trying to get viewers. They let controversial stuff through because controversy made people talk. South Park became famous for pushing limits. Episodes showed with minimal censorship. Crude jokes stayed in. Offensive language stayed uncensored. Visual jokes that crossed lines got through. This was how the show built its reputation. It was the cartoon that did stuff other shows wouldn't dare. But as years passed, standards changed. Comedy Central became a major network.
They had more to lose.
Advertisers got more cautious. Parent groups got more organized. The network started looking back at what they had. They looked at old South Park episodes to see which ones might cause problems. They found dozens that made them nervous. Episodes that showed fine in 1998 felt too risky in 2005. The network decided to edit them, not remove them, just make them less intense, make them safer for modern viewers. The edits happened quietly. Comedy Central didn't say they were changing old episodes, they just did it. When episodes went into reruns, the edited versions got sent out. When streaming deals got made, the edited versions got uploaded. The network made new master copies with the changes in them. The original shows became harder to find. DVD sets released early had the originals, but later DVD releases sometimes had edited versions too. The changes spread across all ways of showing it. Different episodes got different edits, some had language censored, words that showed uncensored originally got bleeped in reruns. This happened to swearing and slurs. The network went back and added bleeps to words they let through years earlier. Other episodes had visual edits. Scenes got cut short. Controversial images got removed. Jokes that needed those images stopped making sense. But the episodes stayed in rotation with the jokes broken. Religious stuff got targeted a lot. Early episodes with Jesus got edited. Scenes showing him in bad situations got shortened or removed. Jewish humor got toned down. Catholic jokes got softened. The network was trying to make it less offensive across all religions, but they weren't consistent. Some religious jokes stayed and others got cut. There was no clear pattern. It seemed like different people edited different episodes with different rules. Sexual stuff also got censored after the fact. South Park's early seasons had a lot of crude sexual humor. Kids talking about sex, adults in sexual situations, visual jokes with body parts. A lot of this got edited out. Not all of it, just enough to make episodes feel safer. The changes made some jokes incomplete. You'd hear a setup, but the punchline was gone. Characters would react to something you couldn't see anymore. The edits made confusion. Violence got reduced in some episodes. South Park was always violent. Characters died all the time. Blood and gore were common. But certain episodes had their violence made shorter. Death scenes got cut quicker, blood got reduced. The edits tried to make the violence less graphic while keeping the jokes. This didn't always work. Sometimes the violence was the joke. Removing it killed the comedy. But networks did it anyway to lower the rating. The edited versions made problems for fans. People who watched South Park when episodes first showed remembered how they were. When they watched again on streaming or cable, things felt off. Jokes they remembered weren't there. Scenes played differently. At first they thought they remembered wrong, but then they talked online. Other fans noticed the same changes.
They realized episodes got edited later.
This made people search for original versions. Fans wanted to see South Park how it was supposed to be. Old DVD sets became valuable. Early releases from the early 2000s had unedited episodes. Fans started buying used copies online. Prices went up as people realized these were the only way to get originals. Later, DVD releases couldn't be trusted. Some had edited versions, even though they said they were uncensored. Buyers had to look up which specific releases had the real versions. It became complicated and expensive to get the complete unedited show. Piracy sites became archives. People who recorded original shows uploaded them. These files went around online. They weren't legal, but they saved content that was being erased legally. Fans downloaded these files to keep original versions alive. The irony was, piracy protected content while real distribution censored it. Legal viewers got changed episodes. Pirates got the real thing. The situation showed how networks could rewrite history. By editing old episodes and only showing the changed versions, they changed the show's legacy. New fans watching on streaming thought they were getting real South Park. They didn't know scenes were missing. They didn't know jokes got ruined. The version they saw became the real version in their minds. The original episodes only existed in private collections and illegal files. This type of censorship was more complete than bans. Banned episodes made controversy. People knew they were missing something. Edited episodes went unnoticed. The censorship was invisible. Looking at episodes that only exist in edited form now, they represent ongoing censorship. Networks keep making changes. When episodes go to new platforms, new edits happen. HBO Max made more changes to some episodes when South Park got there. Paramount Plus did the same. Each platform has different rules. Each makes different edits. The result is multiple edited versions exist.
Which one you see depends on where you watch. The original shows are getting rarer. They're being erased through 1,000 small cuts across decades. This slow censorship is harder to fight than sudden bans. When an episode gets removed, people notice and complain. When an episode gets a little edited, most don't notice at all. The changes add up over time. Eventually, the edited version becomes the only version anyone can find. The original is forgotten.
This is how content gets censored in the streaming age. Not through dramatic removal, but through quiet changes. The episode exists so there's no controversy, but it's been weakened so there's no risk. Networks get it both ways. They keep the content in their library while removing what made it controversial. Fans lose either way. Moving on to why South Park keeps losing episodes. Section 18. Why South Park keeps losing episodes. South Park has been on for over 25 years. In that time, it's made more than 300 episodes, but you can't watch all of them legally. Some are totally banned. Others are heavily edited. A few are only on old DVDs. The show keeps losing episodes to censorship. It happens slowly. An episode disappears from streaming. Another gets edited for reruns. A third becomes unavailable in certain countries. The pattern keeps going with no signs of stopping. Understanding why needs looking at how culture, platforms, and worldwide showing create ongoing pressure to limit content. South Park isn't getting less controversial. The world is getting less okay with controversy. And that gap means more censorship is coming. The first reason is culture changing. What was okay in 1997 isn't okay in 2025. Society changes. Values change. Humor that worked 20 years ago feels offensive now. South Park hasn't changed how it does things much. The show still pushes limits, but the limits moved. Topics that were edgy are now taboo. Language that was shocking is now forbidden. The show keeps making the same kind of stuff, but people react worse. This makes a library of episodes that feel more and more problematic to modern viewers. Networks look at old episodes and see risk. They'd rather remove or edit than defend content from decades ago. Religious sensitivity has gotten bigger worldwide. In the late 90s and early 2000s, religious satire was more accepted in Western media. Shows could make fun of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and other religions without big consequences. But the Muhammad cartoon controversy changed everything. It showed religious satire could have violent consequences. Networks got scared. They started censoring religious content ahead of time. This didn't just affect new episodes, it affected old ones too. Episodes that showed without problems got pulled because networks were scared of backlash later. The standard kept getting stricter. What was okay 5 years ago isn't okay today. What's okay today probably won't be okay in 5 more years. Political pressure matters too. South Park criticizes governments and political people regularly. Some countries handle this, others don't. China bans all criticism of their government. Middle Eastern countries limit content that questions leaders. Even democratic countries have limits on what can be said about leaders. As South Park went worldwide, these political sensitivities made problems. Episodes that worked fine in America couldn't show in other places. Networks had to choose between losing whole countries or removing episodes. They usually chose to remove episodes. The worldwide market was too valuable to risk over individual episodes. Streaming platforms made new censorship chances. In the past, South Park showed on Comedy Central. One network made choices for everyone. But streaming broke up distribution. Now multiple platforms have the show. Each has its own rules. Each makes its own editing choices. HBO Max allows more content than basic cable. Paramount Plus has different rules than HBO Max. International streaming services have their own rules. This makes a patchwork of censorship. What's available in one place isn't available elsewhere. Platforms can remove or edit episodes without working together. The result is no single place has the complete unedited series. Advertisers have more power now than ever. In traditional TV, advertisers bought time slots. If they didn't like a show, they just didn't advertise during it. But streaming uses targeted ads. Ads can show up in specific episodes. This means advertisers can pressure platforms to remove individual episodes they don't want to be connected with. If an episode is controversial, advertisers threaten to pull their whole account. Platforms give in because ad money is critical.
This gives advertisers veto power over content. They can basically ban episodes by refusing to advertise near them.
Platforms would rather remove the episode than lose the money. Legal threats have gone up too. South Park parodies real people and companies. Some of them threaten to sue. They say it's insulting or trademark problems. Most of these threats are baseless. Parody is protected speech in America. But fighting lawsuits is expensive. Platforms often decide it's cheaper to remove an episode than fight in court. Even when they'd probably win, the legal costs aren't worth it. So episodes get removed to avoid lawsuits. This makes a chilling effect. Creators know controversial episodes might get pulled later, even if they're legally protected. This stops controversial content from being made in the first place. International laws make things more complicated. Different countries have different speech laws. What's legal in America might be illegal in Europe or Asia. Hate speech laws in some countries ban stuff that's allowed in others. South Park episodes that are protected speech in the US can be criminal in Germany. Blasphemy laws in some countries make religious satire illegal. Platforms showing worldwide have to deal with these conflicting legal systems. The easiest solution is to remove episodes that break any country's laws. This means the strictest censorship rule works everywhere. If China bans an episode, it might disappear from other places too, just to make distribution simpler. The creators have limited control over censorship. Matt Stone and Trey Parker make the show, but they don't own how it gets shown. Comedy Central and Viacom own those. The creators can complain when episodes get censored, but they can't stop it. The companies that show South Park make choices based on business interests. If censoring episodes protects money, they'll censor. The creator's artistic vision matters less than company risk management. This power difference means censorship happens even when creators don't want it. Fan complaints don't change much either. When episodes get banned or edited, fans notice and complain online. They start petitions, they post angry comments, but platforms rarely respond. They've already decided the risk of keeping controversial content is bigger than making hardcore fans happy. Most viewers don't care about censored episodes. They just want to watch something funny. The complaints come from a loud minority. Platforms can safely ignore them without losing a lot of viewers. This means fan pressure doesn't undo censorship. Episodes stay removed even when thousands of people ask for them back. The pattern is clear. Episodes will keep disappearing. Cultural standards will keep changing. Platforms will keep removing content that feels risky. Advertisers will keep threatening to pull money. Countries will keep blocking episodes that break their laws. And the creators will keep losing control over their own work. The South Park library is shrinking. Not all at once, but slowly. Episode by episode. Edit by edit. In another 10 years, big parts of the show might be impossible to watch legally. The complete series will only exist in private collections and pirated files. Looking at why South Park keeps losing episodes now, it's not about one cause. It's about multiple pressures coming together. Culture changing makes old episodes seem offensive. Worldwide showing brings conflicting laws and rules. Streaming platforms break up control and make more censorship points. Advertisers get power through targeted ads. Legal threats make money pressure to remove content. And company owners care more about money than artistic honesty. All these things work together to slowly erase controversial content. The censorship is death by 1,000 cuts. No single choice removes the show, but together, these pressures make big parts of it unavailable. The pattern will keep going because the reasons aren't going away. If anything, they're getting stronger. South Park will keep losing episodes because the world more and more doesn't want controversial comedy to exist, and platforms are happy to do it. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.